Recently, I've been covering a lot of very well-known fan games on this channel. Five Nights at Candy's, Pop Goes, and Animatronic Memories are probably names you're all familiar with. Recently, I've been looking for a FNAF game to cover that I personally had never heard of, and today I've definitely found one. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's super weird, but however, it does have its charm and an amazing story. So, let's waste no time and hop right into Tales of the Bunnyman. Tales of the Bunnyman opens with a cutscene that reminds me a lot of the old official Five Nights at Freddy's trailers, specifically Five Nights at Freddy's 2. We get several shots of the pizzeria interlaced with pieces of dialogue explaining the exposition of the story. We play as a man named Vincent Baldwin, who we later learn used to be a night guard and is one of the missing children's fathers, the father of Cassidy. We're entering the building to do some investigating and find out where our missing child went. And with our motive in mind, we're safe to head into Night 1 and start talking about what this game really has to offer. Night 1 introduces two characters, but before I start talking about them, I want to talk about the office itself. In our office, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this picture. I don't know who this is. I checked the wiki and couldn't figure out who this is. That's it. I just don't know who this is. Anyways, on to something actually important. The coolest thing I noticed about this office is that there are actually two rooms that we can move between, the typical office room and the boiler room. I'll talk more about the boiler room later when it becomes important. The door to the boiler room can be held shut, as animatronics will actually have to travel through it in order to get to your office. The only other things in our office is our camera system and a giant gift box. We can hide inside of this gift box to be able to protect ourselves from the first major threat of this night, Foxy. Foxy behaves pretty much exactly the same as in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. He starts on Pirate's Cove and makes his way through some phases before attacking. However, something unique about Foxy is he actually has two completely different attacks he can perform, each of which requires you to do something completely different to counteract him. The first attack he has is pretty simple. After he leaves Pirate's Cove, he will charge towards your office. When he does, you'll have to quickly jump inside the present until you hear him run away, after which you can jump back out and continue. His other attack is unfortunately a mechanic I've grown to dislike more and more as I play FNAF games. After leaving Pirate's Cove, Foxy has a chance to appear randomly on one of your cameras. When he does, all you have to do is find him and stare at him until he goes back to Pirate's Cove. This is mainly a me thing, but I've personally grown tired of the find them on the cameras mechanic. Yes, I do play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living, so yes, I'm going to see repeated mechanics a lot. Most sane people don't play as much Five Nights at Freddy's as I do, so most people won't find this mechanic to be that big of a deal, but hey, at least it's not a stupid fucking music box mechanic. We'll talk about that later. The only other threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Bonnie is incredibly simple in how he works, as is typical in most FNAF games that feature him. Bonnie will make his way through the building and to your office. Afterwards, you'll be able to hear him at your door. You'll need to quickly go up to the door and hold it shut until you hear him leave like Five Nights at Freddy's 4. When you do, you'll know it's safe to reopen the door and continue the night. Very basic. That's just how we like Bonnie, isn't it, guys? Right? You like it when Bonnie's basic, right? You wouldn't want Bonnie to just hot bottom right into your office and start fingering you, would you? Freak. And with that, we can move on to the post-Night 1 minigame. Here's where we get to talking a lot about how cool this game really is. This game does narrative storytelling in a different way than any other FNAF game I've ever seen. Instead of an 8-bit minigame or a slideshow lore dump, Tales of the Bunnyman turns into a visual novel during the post-night sections, having you play in the perspective of a different character each night. I think this is actually super cool. While yes, you may think that it looks straight out of a My Hero Academia DeviantArt fan page, it is very clear that an amazing amount of care and effort went into these post-night sections, and that cannot go unnoticed. Before I really start talking about the lore of this game, I need to make it incredibly clear that there was so much poured into this story. There's so many details that I could point out that would make this video quite literally take hours to complete. And while I'd love to be able to talk about all of it, I don't have the confidence in myself to do so, and to be able to portray it in the way that it rightfully deserves. I'll be going over what happens in the story, but I won't be diving into every single minute detail, and I apologize if you were hoping that I would. Anyways, in this minigame, we play in the perspective of Jeremy Jr. Fitzgerald. After hanging out with his friends at Freddy Fazbear's, he notices that his mom has not yet come to pick him up. After waiting an extended period of time, he decides to just watch the performance on stage. Hearing a strange whistling coming from backstage, he enters to investigate, only to abruptly get abducted and murdered by the Bunny Man, going on to possess Bonnie. I honestly think that these post-night minigames are a breath of fresh air in this genre. I've never seen anything like it before, and I'd love to see more FNAF games try to do something new like this to tell their story. But now it's time for us to move on to Night 2. Night 2 only introduces one new thread, that being Chica. Chica does exactly what you'd expect her to do, and no, I don't mean eating until she pops like a balloon. What I really mean is moving through the cameras and then going to your office. Oh my fucking god, that is gross. Yuck. Fucking yuck, bro. She does go through one additional camera compared to Bonnie, making you see her less often than him, but other than that, she's exactly the same as Bonnie. I'll also use this night to talk about the only thing I dislike about this game. The mouse. Oh my god, this mouse is atrocious. Oh no, this mouse is really bad. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you'll already know that the way the mouse works is always something I'll have a problem with when fan games try to switch it up. In most FNAF games, when you move your mouse to the side of the screen will scroll in that direction until it hits the end of your office. That makes sense, and this is good. Tales of the Bunny Man instead decided to take a route similar to Sister Location. If you are to move your mouse to one side of the screen in Tales of the Bunny Man, your mouse won't follow the moving office. Instead, the game will keep track of its simulated X and Y positions in the office. And while this may sound super cool, in practice it leads to you having to move your mouse all the way across your desk or increasing your mouse's sensitivity to be able to make up for it. Is this nitpicky? Yes. But I am giving my opinion on a game, so I think it's important to talk about things that I notice, especially when it's the main interaction mechanic in the entire game. Anyways, moving on to the post-Night 2 minigame, where we play in the perspective of Susie Sutherland. The group of friends were supposed to play the newly installed arcade game, Pop Goes vs. the Machinist? 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 I don't know. Instead, she decides to split up from the group to go look for Bonnie. Walking around the building, we can talk to a kid named Ollie, who mentions something about Bonnie acting weird recently. Given the timeline of the events this game has, I'm fairly certain that this cutscene is taking place 16 days after Jeremy's disappearance. So I think it's safe to say that Jeremy at this point in time is already inside of the Bonnie costume. During this minigame is when Susie can also find a VHS tape relating to Edwin Murray. If you couldn't already tell, this game's story is heavily entwined with the official FNAF games. Later, Susie heads over to Pirate's Cove to get a peek at Foxy, getting startled by William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. It's at this point I need to mention two things. One, why is this specific camera in the post-nights a 3D render instead of the usual 2D drawing? And two, why is William the only character in the entire game to have voice acting? Mr. Afton, don't scare me like that.
Now, what's a missy like you doing snooping around a pirate's property?
Why is he voice acted? I'm much more curious about my second question. I was a little caught off guard when I first heard him speak, since, again, nobody in the game thus far ever has. But regardless, that's not very important. After a brief, uncomfortable conversation with Afton, we meet up with our friends again at the new arcade machine, and as we play the game, we're seen being stalked by the Bunny Man. If you couldn't already guess, Susie Sutherland goes on to possess Chica. Now it's time to talk about Night 3, which introduces one new threat, Freddy and the Marionette. Now, pause. Let's just stop for a moment and talk about Freddy first, okay? Freddy, like Foxy, has two different attacks. We'll talk about the more simple one first. Freddy will make his way through the cameras and enter your boiler room. The reason he does so is to attempt to cut the power, because doing so will allow for the marionette to come spread your buns and lick up your crack. To prevent this from happening, we will have to enter the boiler room and hold our flashlight on his face, causing him to bug out and leave the boiler room. However, before he does, we actually get to see him creepily tilt his body. Such a small detail, but I actually really like it. Now we can talk about the other mechanic Freddy has that I originally thought was going to make me want to skin an elephant. As previously mentioned, it's clear that Freddy wants to assist in helping the marionette grope us. So, Freddy's other attack is him going to the music box to fuck up the marionette's sleep schedule. Fun fact, I used to work a graveyard shift at a news station, and let me tell you, you don't want to fuck with nobody's sleep schedule, bro. So, in order to save the marionette's sanity, we must remotely shut down the music box before Freddy can finish. Moving on to the Night 3 post-night minigame, we play in the perspective of Fritz Smith II. Let me tell you, this guy is a big fan of Foxy. So much so that he insists on constantly talking like a pirate, something that made me want to eat my own lungs throughout my playthrough because I was writhing in cringe. A.S. the worst one. It be fixin' to be jolly. What the fuck does that mean? Fritz leaves the group to go look for Foxy. Going to Pirate's Cove, he finds a decommissioned Foxy behind the curtains. Additionally, he finds a diary written by Henry. I guess for some reason, this is where Henry goes to vent, right next to the fucked up looking robot. A little weird, Henry, but you do you, boo. Inside of the diary, we read that Henry is struggling to cope with the loss of his daughter and his theory about Jeremy and Susie's disappearances having something to do with each other. Little did he know how right he truly was. Whilst continuing to read the diary, the bunny man appears behind him and drags him into the back room, all while taunting him, saying that he thought he was more interested in Foxy than Henry's diary. Fritz would go on to possess Foxy. Moving on to Night 4, we get to talk about a very odd threat, Balloon Boy. Yes, for some reason, Balloon Boy is in this game. Don't question it. I guess the developer of this game just hates fun. Balloon Boy isn't a very difficult threat to deal with, thankfully, instead serving more of an annoyance, which is very fitting for his character. Balloon Boy can only appear in two rooms in the entire game, the boiler room and your backstage camera. You'll have to listen out for a vent sound cue. When you hear it, you'll have to travel to the back room and find where Balloon Boy is, because, unlike Freddy, he has multiple different locations that he can stand in. Once you find Balloon Boy, just like Freddy, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him until he goes away. I'm really not entirely sure why Balloon Boy exists in this game. I have yet to find any story reason for it either. Maybe it's just a popular character to put into the game, or maybe I'm just reading way too much into this. I'm not really sure. But hey, let's move on to the post-Night 4 minigame. In this minigame, we play as Gabriel Collins. Gabriel sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because he has a hunch that his missing friends are still inside. Once he enters, he searches the location, eventually discovering the marionette. They quickly become friends and begin exploring the establishment together. Eventually, they stumble across Michael and William Afton. William is trying to convince Michael to work as a performer, playing the character of Bonnie. But before we can hear anything else, William spots us. He chases us through the building, and the marionette hides us in its gift box. However, unfortunately for Gabriel, William finds him anyway and is knocked out. He wakes up inside of the Freddy Fazbear costume, watching William Afton jump around the dining room, mocking him through his last breaths. Gabriel would then go on to possess Freddy. This is easily one of the most fucked up cutscenes throughout the entire game. I'm no edgelord, as some people seem to think I am, but I really enjoy when games show us the depraved things that the villains do. I and many others don't want to just hear about things happening, we want to see them as well. Of course, I don't think we all want to literally see the children getting murdered, but I think showing off the situations in the way that Tales of the Bunnyman does is incredibly interesting. Next, we get to move on to Night 5, the final main night in Tales of the Bunnyman. This night adds Fredbear, an interesting but fitting final character choice. Fredbear acts as an everything character, being able to take on the role of every animatronic besides Balloon Boy and Foxy. However, unlike most everything nights that take place in other FNAF games, Fredbear is active alongside each other animatronic, adding one more layer of stress to the nights. Again, he doesn't have any unique mechanics by himself, but this time I'm honestly okay with that, only because the other characters are still active. It's at this point I want to bring up something I should have brought up a long time ago: the character designs. From what I've seen, the community seems to be pretty split on their opinions of these character designs. A lot of people love them and think that in combination with the grungy environment, it makes them look very creepy. However, on the other hand, I've seen plenty of people who think that the designs look unprofessional and seemingly come out of a game that came out many years ago. I personally have no problems with the character designs. I think they look creepy and uncomfortable. However, I do think that the texturing on the characters does look a bit odd, but nothing that I feel takes away from the immersion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, since I'm being a little meta right now, go subscribe to my new channel, Dxtr Gray. I cover non-FNAF horror games over there, and we have a lot of fun. Anyways, moving on to the final post-night minigame where we play in the perspective of Cassandra Baldwin, or better known, Cassidy. Now, noticing that she's the only member of her friend group that hasn't gone missing, she vows to figure out what happened to them and find where they all disappeared to. Entering the back room, she finds a Fredbear plushie which, throughout the game, has been shown to be able to teleport on its own, and yet, for some reason, nobody felt like that was weird at all. This is really the only gripe I have with this story, the plushie teleporting around, and multiple people know about this, yet nobody is at all a little concerned about it. On top of that, it is literally never once elaborated on or explained why this happens. I can't even draw a conclusion because there's quite literally no reason, but let's try to put that behind us for a moment and continue. We do know that the plushie is being used by Afton to lure Cassidy into the back room. Now, pause. I know I just said there's literally no reason given as to why it's teleporting, and you may be questioning why I said that even though I just stated that William was using it to lure Cassidy. However, that still doesn't explain how it was fucking teleporting, and still doesn't explain why nobody gave that a second thought. Anyways, Cassidy is successfully lured into the back room. Scared, Cassidy runs out of the pizzeria and later returns for a Halloween party. Baka! I know that's not what that says, I'm sorry. As she explores, she's found by the bunny man who presumably knocks her out after stating, "You forgot me." She awakens to find herself inside of the Fredbear costume. William explains that originally he planned to save the Fredbear costume for Henry, but decided to use it for Cassidy instead. During their conversation, it's revealed that Vincent, the character that we've been playing as in the night sections, according to William, is a terrible night guard, which would technically leave him responsible for not noticing the children's disappearances on the camera, since every action that William had been taking was done under the constant surveillance of those cameras, including what's happening right now in front of us. This would give us a perfect reason as to why he's returning to the restaurant now to find his daughter, because he didn't watch her like he was supposed to. He never saw what happened. Afterwards, we get one last cutscene. Vincent walks up to the Fredbear animatronic and realizes it's his daughter. However, he trips and falls, which leads to him getting killed by his own daughter, and Tales of the Bunnyman abruptly comes to a close. Almost. There's actually one more thing to talk about, that being Night 6, or as this game calls it, the epilogue. In it, after completing the final challenge, which is just a harder version of Night 5, we see the line, "He finally found the suit that will become his tomb, the last lingering piece of his soul. A good song never dies." With that, we get to watch William's spring lock failure and onlook as he bleeds out. we're shown that Vincent, our character, was found dead inside of Freddy Fazbear's, and several news outlets labeled him as the reason the kids were murdered. I can't lie to you guys, I'm really eager to talk about this story, since after reading into it, I actually think it's really good, and it's clear that a bunch of effort was put into it. But like I said previously, I'm just not confident in my abilities to do it for myself. I've tossed around the idea of just reading the highly detailed explanation on the wiki that was written by somebody that was far more talented than I am, but I've decided against doing that since I don't want to come off as lazy and uninspired. And as much as I hate saying this, I'd highly recommend you go to the wiki and read up on it. It's actually such an amazingly well-written story, and I think it might just be one of the best takes on the official FNAF story I've ever seen. Overall, I think Tales of the Bunnyman is an enjoyable experience. The post-night minigames are interesting, and the story is fantastic and told in a way that isn't overtly confusing like most FNAF games like to be. However, I do think that the actual gameplay mechanics are pretty lackluster. Not only does each character not really have synergy with one another, this game is also just too easy. Throughout the nights, it never really feels like the characters are becoming more aggressive, which tends to lead to boring nights where you're just waiting for the much more enjoyable minigame sections. One of my favorite genres of games is roguelikes. I also, as I'm sure you could have guessed, really like Five Nights at Freddy's games. I've only built a whole career off of it, so I'm sure you could have figured that out. So I bet you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I was told that there was a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was also a roguelike. The moment I learned of this, I downloaded it as fast as I could and started filming videos because I just knew even before playing it that it was going to be getting a Dxtr White video, and here we are now. You guys know what game I'm talking about. You can see the length of this video. I very clearly like this game a lot. So sit back, relax, and join me as we dive into the chaotic world of Too Many Nights. Unlike most FNAF games, Too Many Nights doesn't follow any storyline or the typical FNAF formula. Instead, it acts as an endless minigame that doesn't stop until you fail. Although I'm sure you already knew that considering everyone on Earth has played a roguelike before. At the start of each run, you will get to pick a character, of which there are many. Each character gives you a different set of abilities, with each having a list of pro and cons. You don't start with all of them and will have to gradually unlock them by doing specific tasks. I'll go over them in a bit. After picking a character, you will have to select 3 animatronics to put into the pizzeria. And this is where this game gets brilliant. You get to choose 3 animatronics yourself. The game will never choose them for you, and your initial choices will be random at the start of each run. However, if you really don't like your starting options, you can press R to re-roll your first pick as much as you'd like. As I'm sure you could have guessed, there are several animatronics in Too Many Nights. Each has a unique mechanic, and it will be up to you to plan out which animatronics you bring along, and control how they will be forced to interact with each other. Each animatronic falls into a certain category. You have your door animatronics, your camera animatronics, your mask animatronics, your vent animatronics, your flashlight animatronics, and what I'm going to call your nuisance animatronics. Each of these categories serves its own purpose, and generally speaking, picking multiple animatronics from the same category will make your gameplay experience easier. Before I really start talking about the characters, I'd like to explain the rest of the experience of a run. To start, after selecting your first 3 animatronics, the run will begin. After completing a night, you will be forced to add 1 new character. Every few nights, you will also be forced to add a penalty. These penalties fall into 2 categories: your general penalties and your character penalties. I'll dive into each of these later as well. After selecting a penalty, you may get the chance to go to the shop and buy some items. Throughout the night, you will gain Faz coins from successfully defending yourself from the animatronics. Once again, I will get into these items later. Keep repeating this process until you eventually die, and boom, that's the gameplay loop of Too Many Nights. Of course, that was a very oversimplified explanation. So now we're going to dive into each of the animatronics, how they work, and to keep it interesting, I'll even throw each character into a tier list so that you can all argue about it in the comments. I'm just going to go down the list that appears on the wiki, and be prepared, there are a lot of animatronics. Editor, I'd say I'm sorry for what you're about to have to do, but that would be a lie. Let's go. Freddy is a camera animatronic, aka my personal least favorite type of animatronic. Freddy will start on stage and make his way towards your right door. All you have to do is occasionally stare at him on the cameras to make him go backwards. I'm sure you can guess why I'm not going to like a majority of these camera animatronics. If he ever reaches your door, he will never leave and you'll be forced to keep it closed for the rest of the night or die. Freddy also has 5 penalties that have the option to be chosen when you have to select a penalty. The first is Mad Freddy, which will make you have to look at Freddy longer to make him go backwards. His second penalty is Branched, which gives him a chance to be able to attack your left door as well. And when you're playing this game, you will very quickly fall into a pattern, so having a character be able to switch up on you like this would very obviously throw you off. Stare Down is another Freddy penalty. This one is horrific. It makes Freddy never move backwards. Staring at him will only stall him. However, to compensate, he moves a lot slower, and the camera doesn't have to be up for you to be able to stall him. Invisifreddy is a penalty that I'm sure you could take a solid guess at what it does. That's right, it makes him fucking invisible. Isn't that great? Sure, a sound cue is added to his movements, but fuck that. That just sounds like AIDS. Finally, we have Nuh-uh, a penalty that's just so silly. When Freddy gets to your door, he will prevent the door from ever closing again throughout the rest of the night. Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't? Yeah, I know. Don't choose this one if you can help it. Overall, I'm not a fan of Freddy, but without penalties, he isn't the worst character in this game, so I'm going to give him a C tier. Bonnie is a door character, aka a character I usually like to pick. Bonnie starts on stage and makes his way to your left door. Once there, a sound cue will play and you'll have to close the door and stare at him on the camera until he goes away. Then you can open the door again. Incredibly easy character, however he does have 3 penalties. Cutting is a penalty that makes both Bonnie and Chica take shorter paths to your doors. Because of how easy both of them are to deal with, this penalty isn't too bad. Quiet Steps makes Bonnie and Chica not make sound cues while at your door, so yeah, fuck that. No other words need to be said. And finally, Flip Side is a penalty that will make Bonnie and Chica swap doors immediately after leaving the first door. Easily the second worst penalty these two have. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, Chica is literally identical to Bonnie, except she attacks the right door instead of the left. And because of this, and how quick I am to pick these two, I'm putting both of them in S tier. Foxy isn't the worst character I've seen, but I did avoid choosing him for a very long time. Foxy will try to leave his stage in the ticket booth. Have your camera on him to stall him. If you don't, he'll charge at your door and bang on it, and make you lose a poop sock full of power. Foxy has 3 penalties and 1 item, which is pretty cool. Insta-Foxy is a penalty that will cause Foxy to instantly start in his last phase at the start of a night. This penalty actually isn't that bad at all, just let him charge right away and it's like the penalty isn't even there anymore. Hen House is a penalty that forces the camera to be up to stall Foxy, which actually is the most cancerous thing I've ever heard of. Haywire is the final penalty, which will make him attack your other door directly after attacking the first door. The only bad part about this is that him banging on your door drains power. And the item that Foxy has is called Good Guy, which makes Foxy not a threat. Looking at him will make him progress, and when he comes to your office, he'll give you a nice little gift like a good boy. Because of how much of a non-issue he is if you balance him properly with the other characters, I'm putting him in B tier. Mangle is a vent animatronic, and she's honestly not that big of a problem. She'll move through the cameras into one of your vents. All you have to do is put your mask on when she's in a vent. She will enter the office for a short period and then leave. I personally hate having to use the mask in this game, so I try my best to avoid characters that force that, but Mangle is probably the easiest of them. Mangle does have 3 penalties. Anger Management is a penalty that makes looking at Mangle speed her up. Aggressive Mangle is a penalty that makes Mangle force you to put the mask on for longer. And finally, Slithering In is a penalty that causes looking at Mangle in the vents to make her immediately appear in your office. Overall, I hate the mask mechanic. However, Mangle isn't the worst mask character in the game, so I'm giving her a C tier. Caroline, or the Marionette, behaves exactly how you'd expect her to. She's a music box. Hooray! Who could have expected that? If the music box winds down, for the rest of the night she will randomly teleport to a camera with a sound cue at random intervals. You will have to find her and stare at her if you don't want her to kill you. She does, however, have a whopping 6 fucking penalties, so that's just amazing. Let's go over all of them quickly. Winding down makes you have to wind the music box for longer. Moving box makes the music box move to a random camera every time you pull the camera down. Aids. Muted music makes her not make a sound cue when she teleports to a camera. Show stealer gives you less time to find her while she's away from the music box. Last stand is really ass, by the way. When it turns 6 a.m., Caroline will teleport to a random camera, and the night will only end once you find her. Dude, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's just fucking cooked, bro. I can't do nothing about that. And finally, the worst penalty yet, Caroline Carousel, which will make her be away from the music box the entire night. Genuinely, never pick this penalty. Caroline is definitely annoying, but in all honesty, the music box is pretty forgiving until much later nights. So, because of this, I'm only putting her in D tier. Lizzie is the first non-FNAF canon character we'll be talking about. Fun fact, there are a lot of non-canon characters, but I think that's what adds to this game's charm. Lizzie herself isn't actually the threat. She spawns down bitty buds in your office while your camera is up. Simply hold your flashlight on them and they'll disappear. If there are too many, they'll call Lizzie and she will then kill you. Lizzie has 2 different penalties as well. Speedy Bud will make the bitty buds call Lizzie to your office faster, and Help Wanted will turn the brightly colored bitty buds into dark colored plush Lizzies, which are much harder to see in the very purple office. Lizzie is one of my favorite characters to see in my runs. I love flashlight characters, and I really love office characters. So because of this, I'm giving her S tier. BB is a bitch, but I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. And of course, they gave him the worst mechanic of all time. At random times, he will teleport to a random camera with a sound cue.
Hello?
You will have to find which camera he's on and hold the flashlight on him.
Bye-bye.
If that wasn't bad enough, his penalties make him even worse. Mute BB makes him not make a sound cue, which is actually just fucking torment. Don't pick this. I'm Moving will make him teleport to a second camera after you find him the first time. Little asshole. And Aggressive BB will force you to hold the light on him for longer. Literally, fuck that. I'm sure from the tone in my voice, you can tell I really don't like BB, so because of that, I'm obviously giving him an F tier. Sparky the dog is a camera character that makes me piss blood. He's in the storage room and has 4 phases he will move through before appearing in your office and forcing you to put the mask on for a decently long time. To prevent this, all you have to do is stare at him on the cameras, something I've already made clear I'm not a super huge fan of. He also has 3 penalties if your urine wasn't already red enough. Mad Sparky will force you to look at him on the cameras for longer to push him back. Sparky Speedy will make Sparky move faster, obviously. And Aggressive Sparky will make you put the mask on longer if he enters the office. I don't like camera characters. I hate the idea of staring at a character to stop them. D tier. Percy Poodle, yes, from Playtime with Percy, is easily one of the best characters in the game. Being an office flashlight animatronic, all he does is have multiple phases in front of the big office window. He'll start pounding on the glass in his final phase, and you'll then have to hold the flashlight on him to make him go back. He also only has 2 penalties, and both of them really aren't that bad. Aggressive Percy will make him only go back to his last stage the first time you deal with him, but only the first time, so who cares? And Mute Percy makes him make no sound cue when he's pounding on the glass, so just open your eyes and this won't be a problem. Percy is simple. Percy is always an easy pick. S tier. Rowan Rat, on the other hand, is actual fucking torment. At random times, he will appear in any of the 4 corners of the building. When you see him in one, shock him and he'll go away. You will also have the ability to use a radar to detect where he is and where he's going. Oh yeah, and you only have a certain number of shocks, so that's just terrible. He has 4 possible penalties, and all of them are worse than death. Aggressive Rowan gives you less time to shock him. No radar removes the fucking radar, making you constantly have to check all 4 corners yourself. Less shocks obviously gives you less shocks, as the name would suggest. And Rowan makes him fucking invisible. Fuck that. Never in a million years am I picking that shitty option. Rowan by himself isn't the worst, but if you get any of his penalties, which will happen eventually, he becomes a nightmare. So I'm putting him in D tier. Maple is almost a good character, but because it's not the only character you'll be up against, it's hard to find it as an attractive pick. At the beginning of each night, it will require you to collect a certain amount of plushies. This number increases with its AI value. You will then have to search around the cameras for these plushies. If you don't find them all before 6 a.m., it'll kill you. Amazing mechanic, but again, it's not the only one, so it's really just more of a pain in the ass. It does have 3 penalties. What are those? Well, Early Killer will have it check if you have the plushies at 5 a.m. rather than 6. Hidden Counter will literally just make it not tell you how many plushies you need to find, which is bullshit. And Restock will add a timer to how fast you need to find the plushies. If you don't find them in time, it'll re-hide all the plushies again, forcing you to find them all in pretty much one go. Again, it's not the worst, but can easily get out of control on later nights when you start to only focus on certain cameras while it has the large plushie counter. So I'm going to give it a C tier. Noelle is another very interesting character that easily has the chance to be forgotten about. When you start the night, a pair of scissors will appear on a random camera. At complete random, Noelle can appear in the office with a sound cue. When it does, you need to find the scissors and click them to make it go away. The scissors will then teleport to another random camera. If you don't click the scissors, it'll force you to put the mask on for a few seconds, which is a long time in this game. Noelle, of course, has 3 penalties. Pull down will make it forcefully pull down the camera when it enters your office, which could honestly be seen as a good thing. Bro, that's not okay. I fucked myself. Having the force pull down from Noelle mixed with the Roby absolutely fucking creamed my ass, dude. Aggressive Noelle is terrible. When it enters your office, if you click any camera aside from the one with the scissors, it will immediately make you put the mask on. And Crazed Teddy will cause it to insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. A certain item does affect Noelle, however. If you have Chill Pill, you will get 4 additional seconds to put the mask on when it attacks you, which is a lot of time in this game. I'm not a huge fan of Noelle, especially not when it has aggressive on, so because of this, I'm going to put it in C tier. Melatonin is a real bitch of a character. It moves around the cameras, but it's invisible when it does. You'll hear it laughing in one of your ears, and on the 3rd laugh, you'll have to close the door of whichever side it's on until you hear it leave. It has 2 penalties that just serve as the salt in the wound as well. Switch Up is easily the worst. Before it moves, you'll have to check the dining room to see a counter for how many laughs it'll have before attacking, now being randomized from 2 to 4. Unplanned only makes its first laugh on the correct side, needing you to remember which side it was originally on. I don't like characters that I can't see. I also find it really hard to keep a timer in your head like you need to do with Melatonin. So because of this, I'm putting it in D tier. Lydia is a dog. She'll be in the ticket booth in a fucking cage where she belongs. When you hear her banging on the cage, you'll have to take her out like Ol Yeller. Just kidding, you actually just have to hold the cage until that dumb mutt shuts up. The wiki, for some reason, doesn't have a page for her, and since I avoided her at all costs, I actually never experienced any of her penalties. But if I had to guess, I'd bet one of them makes you hold her cage for longer, and another makes her not make noise when she's attacking. But going off of how I know her to be with no penalties, I'm going to put her in C tier. Amber is a character that at first didn't seem too bad, but will very quickly become a run killer. She begins at the entrance. At random times, she'll hold up a playing card with a suit on it. You will then have to click the corresponding suit on the cameras or she'll kill you. The 2 penalties she has might actually be the most evil ones in the entire game. Follow Suit will give her the ability to have more than 1 card, and 52 Pickup will make that number of cards she can hold literally be any number, which is so retarded I can't even begin to explain why you shouldn't pick this, so just don't. I thought Amber would be great, but I very quickly started to avoid her whenever I could. C tier. CG is annoying, a nuisance character, but not very hard to deal with unless you get unlucky. She will randomly move around the cameras, and if you look at her on the cameras for too long, she'll make you put the mask on for a really, really long time. Her penalties aren't really the worst, however. Aggressive CG will make you put the mask on for longer, and Insta CG will make her enter your office if you look at her, period, even if only for a fraction of a second. However, a monitor is added to your office, showing exactly where she is at all times so that you can easily avoid her. There are much worse nuisance characters, and if you don't have any of her penalties, she really isn't a problem. B tier. Dsam, I'm gonna say Sam, is a character I never once chose throughout my playthrough. You may think that makes me a bad reviewer, but I personally think that makes me someone who values not killing myself. Sam will slowly walk back and forth in front of your window with some sound cues. Before he gets to a door, you will have to close it. making him a character you pretty much always have to be watching. He has 2 penalties. Quiet Som removes his sound cues, and Invisisom forces you to only use his sound cues. So pick your poison, dumbass. Or even better, just don't pick this character. D tier. Roby is torture. I thought he wouldn't be so bad, and let's just say I wasn't so right. He sits in your office with a timer on his eye. When it reaches 0, you must have your mask on or you will die. He has 2 penalties that are all equally terrible. Mute Roby removes the sound cue he makes right before waking up. Awoken Roby makes him stay awake longer, forcing you to put the mask on longer. I'm dead serious. Don't pick this character. He is horrific. F tier. Alexis is simple, but very easy to forget about, especially on later nights. She will randomly wander around the cameras. If you pull the camera down while on the camera she's at, she'll make you put the mask on for a really long time. So you'll have to switch cameras before pulling them down. She also has 3 penalties. Aggressive Alexis makes her act like CG, where looking at her for too long will also make her attack you. Sneaky Ghost will only make her appear on a camera after you look at it for a second, and Crazed Ghost will insta-kill you instead of making you put the mask on. If you are diligent and aren't an idiot, Alexis is not an issue. But because of how fast you'll be switching through cameras on later nights, I can't give her any higher than a B tier. Onion is another character I never choose. When you pull up the cameras, there's a chance he'll be on them and quickly run left or right. You will have to close the corresponding door. If you close both, he'll drain a bunch of power. Again, for some reason he doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know what his penalties are, but just knowing what he does, I'm going to put him in C tier. T Generic is a very annoying character who I only choose if every other character was ass. He will be in the entrance with an arrow on his face. Once he leaves the entrance, he will go to whichever vent he was pointing to, and you'll have to stare at him in that vent until he goes away. If he gets into your office, you'll have to put the mask on for a very long time. He has 3 penalties that somehow make him even more annoying. Crazed Robot will make him insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. How About I Do Anyway will make him enter your office regardless of if you looked at him in the vents or not. However, if you did look at him, you'll have to put the mask on for a shorter amount of time. And Glitched will make T Generic sometimes switch what vent he's going to, making his arrows completely useless. He's a character that breaks the rules and that breaks my balls. D tier. Kaiden acts in much the same way as T Generic. He'll start in the entrance holding a sign with an arrow pointing left or right. Once he leaves with a sound cue, you'll have to close whichever door he was pointing to. He of course has penalties that make him silent and make him go in the opposite direction the sign was pointing to. I've actually picked Kaiden multiple times because if you can avoid his annoying penalties, he's an incredibly easy character to deal with, since you can close both doors when you hear his sound cue for about 2 seconds and not have any additional penalties. A tier. The ink monstrosity is always an immediate pick for me. It starts in your office on the ceiling and slowly creeps down. Hold your flashlight on it to force it back up. The best part is it'll basically teleport all the way back up when you flash the light on him, but that's where his penalties come into play. Stubborn will make you have to hold your light on him, removing the loveliness of this character, but overall still isn't too bad. Head Start will make the ink monstrosity start halfway down in your office and won't be able to go all the way back up to the top. Easily the worst penalty this character has. I love this character, always an immediate choice for me. S tier. Robo Popcakes is a character I initially avoided, but eventually grew to really like picking. At random, he'll spawn on your cameras. Not a specific one, he'll just be an overlay. You will have to match up 2 patterns using the arrows on the overlay, and once you do, he'll disappear. If you don't do it in time, you'll die. This character is always one I liked choosing because of how likely I am to pick characters like Bonnie and Chica, because while I stare at them on the cameras, I can deal with RoboCake, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He has 2 penalties. X = X minus 2 gives you 2 less seconds to align his face, and pop time will only cause time to progress when you complete a Robo Popcakes attack. Overall, even with max penalties, Robo Popcakes isn't a terrible character. A tier. Entity 12 is pure masochism. They'll start in the storage or maintenance and move down your hall. Watch them on the cameras to make it go back. If they get to your office, they'll make you put the mask on for a long ass time. And get this, the 2 penalties they add doesn't make it any better. Aggressive Entity 12 will make you put the mask on for the rest of the fucking night if it gets into your office. And Run Killer will literally start with it inside of your office and it will never leave. Literally fuck that. Fuck this character. F tier. Mura is a character I'd highly recommend not picking if you have other characters that don't want you spamming through cameras, because you will have to be doing that a lot with Mira. Mira will be in the kitchen the entire night and will require you to feed her candy. If you don't feed her enough, you'll die. Candy will randomly spawn throughout the cameras, so you'll have to surf through them to click on them. The penalties she adds are brutal. Savory Tooth makes candy spawn less. Small Plate puts a small cap on the amount of candies you can hold at a time. And Sweet and Sour adds sour candies that will remove a candy from your candy counter if you click on them. So if you've been working your muscle memory this whole time and get this penalty, have fun clicking on every single sour one all the time. I'm not a fan of the camera surfing this character brings, and I'd much rather prefer to just ignore picking her. D tier. The Ringmaster is an interesting character. He'll randomly spawn on your cameras. When you see him, you'll have to flip the camera down and greet him in your office. If you switch cameras, he'll make you put the mask on for a long time. Crazed Magician is a penalty that will make clicking off of his camera just instantly kill you. And Masked Magician will make flipping down the camera always make you put the mask on, but for less time than usual. I don't love picking Ringmaster, but I will usually end up choosing him later in a run. B tier. The Entity is someone who gives me AIDS. They will randomly spawn on your cameras in 3 locations, except only one of them is actually real. You'll be able to tell because the fakes will be more transparent. Again, for some reason their wiki isn't available and I never actually chose any of their penalties, so I'm not totally sure what they are. But I hate find them on the camera characters. You guys know that. D tier. No VA is a character I only dealt with once, acting as probably the most nuisance characters of all the nuisance characters. No VA will randomly move around your cameras. You will have to avoid clicking on the camera it's on or you'll have to put on the mask. On lower AI levels, the camera it's on will be marked with green, making it very easy to see. As the AI goes up, it'll get harder and harder, eventually becoming fucking invisible. And let me tell you, the penalties make it even worse, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Malware makes clicking on No VA's camera kill you instantly. Spamware makes No VA on multiple cameras at a time, and adware creates an adware window on your cameras. If you don't close it fast enough, it will force you to look at No VA's camera. I actually think this character is really cool, and I think that its penalties are actually super interesting. Aside from malware, that one is AIDS. I still don't love picking this character though, because I hate mask characters. So because of this, I'm giving No VA C tier. Moldy is a character that is a really good pick for early game, but late game will easily become a character you will forget about. Whenever you pull down your camera, there's a chance he'll be in your office. If he is, you'll have to hold your light on him for a while, or you'll have to put the mask on. He has 2 penalties. Aggressive Moldy will make you have to shine your light on him for longer, and Crazed Mold will make pulling up the camera while he's in your room instantly kill you. Again, early game, he's amazing, but you will very quickly forget about him once more characters start to get added. So because of this, I'm giving him B tier. Rita Rabbit is thick, but that's not important. What is how she works. She sits on her fat ass in the arcade slowly attempting to leave. All you have to do is hold the flashlight on her to make her go away. Honestly, not that bad of a character if you pair her with other arcade characters, which there is a decent amount of. She has 2 penalties. Aggressive Rita will make you hold your flashlight on her longer, and Cheeky Rabbit will make her move faster the longer you're not looking at her camera. If you know how to stack her with other characters properly, Rita shouldn't be a problem even if you have her penalties. A tier. Coral is another character that I love seeing as an option to pick. Coral will randomly appear at either of your doors with no sound cue, so you'll have to make sure you're paying attention. Simply close the door he's at and he'll knock, letting you know he's left. He has 2 different penalties. Blinding will make you additionally hold the flashlight on him for a while, and making sure will force you to have your camera down while the door is closed in order for him to leave. I love this character, he's super easy to deal with, S tier. Shrimp is another character that just makes me giddy with joy whenever I see her. Shrimp will occasionally spawn some shrimp food in your office on either side. Whichever side it's on is the side you have to close the door of until the shrimp food disappears. The 2 penalties she adds are easily some of the best to deal with. Big Shrimpin' is a penalty that will cause the shrimp food to have the chance to be really big. If it's really big, you just have to close both doors. And small shrimpin gives the food the chance to have the lid off. If it is, all you have to do is close the door to the opposite side of the food. Shrimp is incredibly easy to deal with, she's satisfying to deal with, and she doesn't use the fucking cameras, which I love. Easy S tier. Worm is the next character we have to talk about, and I avoided this guy like the plague. I was very scared of how it was going to work, so I never actually ended up using it. Worm will start in the dining room and go down your right hall and will stay there until you open the door. When you open the door, it'll crawl through your office. Avoid looking at it either by using the mask or looking at the cameras until it leaves. It also has 2 penalties. Snail makes it move across the office slower, and Digger will make Worm add another bar of power usage while it's at your door. Worm just seems like a character that would completely disrupt the flow of the night, and because of that, I'm putting it in D tier. Kyle and Bob are the 2 next assholes I want to talk about, and these guys are weird, and also really shitty and confusing, and I don't fully understand them. Kyle and Bob are 2 separate animatronics, but they work in tandem. Both of them are vent characters. If Kyle, the yellow one, enters your vent, you have to look at him on the camera or he will enter your office and make you use the mask. If Bob is in your vent, you can't look at him on the cameras or he'll enter your office and make you use the mask. The only problem is, I was never able to figure out how to tell which one entered the vent. At first, I thought maybe they'd alternate and I'd have to remember, but then during one run, Kyle attacked twice in a row. So I'm thinking there has to be something I'm misunderstanding about these 2. Of course, they each have 2 penalties. Crazed Sun makes them instantly kill you if they enter your office, and Eclipsed will make one of them invisible while the other is in the vent. I tried to like these guys, but because I'm retarded and can't fully figure them out, they were never for me. D tier. Magi is a pretty interesting character. He will consistently walk back and forth in front of your window. At random, he will make a sound cue letting you know he's about to attack.
Come on, go.
When he does, you have to close the door to the side he's on, leading to you needing to keep track and remember which side he's on at all times. This isn't too bad for someone like me who tries to be able to stay in the office as much as possible. Magi has 3 penalties. Reach around will change the way his sound cues work. If he says
Surprise,
or
you won't see this one coming.
You will then need to close the door to the opposite side he's on. This can be confusing for obvious reasons. Do it myself is a penalty that will make Magi attack the opposite door whenever you deal with his puppet the first time. And Invisimagi makes him fucking invisible, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Magi is not my favorite, but I have no problem picking him later in the run when things are getting tight. B tier. Mallory, on the other hand, is torture. She stays in the ticket booth. At random, she will hold up any amount of fingers on one hand. You will then have to flash her with the flashlight that many times. If you flash her too many times or not enough, she will dash at your door 15 times. This is AIDS, and I can't even lie, 15 times? Why so many? Seems a bit overkill, don't you think? But let's talk about her penalties, which she has 3 of. Ambidextrous will make her be able to show you up to 8 fingers. DoorDash will make her charge 20 fucking times instead of 15, and DoorDash EX makes her charge your doors for the entire night. Easily one of the most bullshit characters when you have her penalties on, but if you can avoid choosing them, she's only really ass because her hand is conveniently behind the fucking camera map. D tier. Roy is one of the only camera animatronics I can actually stomach. He starts in the dining room and slowly makes his way to your office. You can lure him to a previous camera by holding your flashlight on them. Since he's a moth, he's attracted to the light. He only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Roy, which will just make you have to hold the light for longer to get him to move. Overall, very solid character, and not too annoying to handle until his AI value gets really high. A tier. Silly is kinda silly. Fuck, editor, cut that out. Silly is my favorite vent animatronic. He moves around the cameras, who gives a fuck? Eventually, he'll enter one of your vents. When he does, all you have to do is hold the flashlight on him before he enters your office and eats your butt. He also only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Silly, which makes you hold the flashlight on him for longer. Very simple character, he makes sound cues, I like sound cues, S tier. Next up, we've got Bop. She's an interesting, ADHD-riddled little fuck. When you pull down the camera, there's a chance she'll be standing in your window. She will then dash towards either of your doors. Simply close that door before she gets to it. She has 3 penalties. Layered Square will make Bop charge your doors multiple times. Bop Spawn will cause Bop to be able to spawn at your window even if the camera is down, and Force Down will make Bop force your camera down if it is up. A character that requires quick reaction time, and when more characters get added can be easily missed. E tier. Venus is a fucking plant. Oh, you want to know what they do? Sure, that's fair enough. Venus will sit in the kitchen the entire night like your mom in the middle of the night looking for more food even though she ate 65% of dinner that night. Throughout the night, bunnies will spawn in your room and you'll have to click on them to collect them. You then feed these bunnies to Venus in the kitchen camera. Very fucked up, Venus. These bunnies are cute. Venus has a hefty 4 different penalties, actually being one of the highest in the game. Wabbit hunting will make the bunnies in your office jump around, making them harder to click. Except they're still not hard to click, so it's not that bad. Depopulation will make the bunnies spawn less frequently. Wanderer will make Venus randomly move around your cameras instead of camping the kitchen. And Mako will add Venus's friend Mako into your office. If you click on him, you'll die. Venus is very fun to play with. Their mechanic is satisfying, clicking on the bunnies is fun, and even most of their penalties aren't too bad. S tier. Cyrex is the next character we need to talk about, and I absolutely hate her. She starts in the ticket booth and slowly makes her way to your office. Before she gets to your office, you'll have to go to the ticket booth camera and call her to your office manually and then put the mask on. If she gets to your office by herself, I'm assuming you can guess what happens. And if you couldn't have already guessed, her penalties aren't much better. Rising aggression makes her make you put the mask on longer the longer you take to call her to your office. And call tracker will randomize the camera the call button is on every time you use it. This character is Torment. This character is Anguish, F tier. Next we have Ellie, another character so potently AIDS I fear even talking about her. Her goal is to chew the wires in the storage room to cut your power. You will have to watch for her in either hall. When she's in one, you must make sure the door on that side is open and shake a box of snacks on that side of the office to lure her inside of the office. She will leave shortly thereafter. If your office door isn't open when you lure her, she will bang on the door and drain your power. She also has 3 penalties if this didn't already sound terrible enough. Shaker will force you to shake the bag of treats longer. Power Chomper will make Ellie drain more power when she bangs on your door, and Wind Skip will make her able to teleport from one hall to another without ever appearing in your window like she usually does. I don't think I have to explain why this character is awful to deal with. The rules that go along with her are far more complicated than any other character, F tier. The next character we have to begrudgingly talk about is Ammo. Ammo starts in the dining room and will slowly wander to your right door. Each camera he travels through will have an eject button with 2 power. Before Ammo reaches your office, you must press the eject button on any camera that has the eject power, which will then send him back to the dining room. Once a camera is out of power, there's no way to get it back. If this wasn't terrible sounding enough, you haven't even heard of his 3 penalties yet. Quiet Ammo will remove his sound cue when he moves. Single Take only allows each room to have 1 eject power instead of 2, and Demon adds Ammo's friend, Demon, who will randomly move around the ejectable cameras. If you eject a camera Demon is on, you will die. I hate this character. Dealing with him can be bad on higher AI values, but since he's nowhere near as bad as some of the other characters in this game, I'm putting him in D tier. And here we are, 29 pages into my script later, and we can talk about the final animatronic in this game, Swagman. Swagman has a pretty interesting mechanic I've actually never seen before. He will randomly wander around the cameras. You will have to stare at him to fill his swag meter up. If it goes all the way down, he will make you put the mask on for a long ass time. However, this mechanic isn't as bad as I usually say it is, because you can easily tell which camera Swagman is on because he lights it up. So, what about his 3 penalties? Well, Swagalicious makes him move from camera to camera faster, which can get annoying. Endless Swag will force you to put the mask on for the rest of the night if Swagman gets in, and Eye on the Swag will make Swagman's meter go up slower than usual. Overall, not a bad character, and no penalty that removes the ability to see what camera he's on. C tier. And there we go. That's every single character in Too Many Nights. I love how many there are. It leads to such a new and interesting experience every time you play, and I love it. But now I'd like to mention the general penalties that aren't specific to any character, as there are a few of those as well. Generally, from what I've noticed, it's much smarter to pick the general penalties over the character penalties, as it will be much more likely that they will be easier to deal with. Overtime will make each hour of the night last 2 seconds longer, and you can actually have 2 overtime penalties active at a time. Less power will, as the name suggests, make you start each night with less power, 10% to be exact, and you can have 3 of these penalties. Less room is a penalty that will give you 1 less option when selecting animatronics, and you can have 2 of them. All-Star will make the next enemy you add start at max AI value. Stranger Danger will add a random character you don't already have at a very low AI value, and Midnight Motivation will make all characters' AI value increase at 3 AM. All-Star, Stranger Danger, and Midnight Motivation are probably going to be penalties you always want to avoid, but I personally don't think the other characters are that bad. Next up, I'd like to talk about the characters that you can unlock to play as, because if you remember, each character has different pros and cons for you to choose from. To start, each character has a different amount of lives they'll start you with. Getting jump scared by an animatronic will cause you to lose one of these lives, giving you multiple opportunities if you mess up. And of course, I'll be putting these guys on a tier list as well. The first character you will have by default is Michael. He gives you 3 hearts and has no abilities. He's as basic can get, really. D tier. You also by default have 3 other much more interesting characters. The first being Elizabeth. She gives you 4 hearts and forces the enemies to have their AI values increase slower. But as a con, you'll receive half the amount of coins you'd usually get. The low AI value honestly makes her pretty valuable, but of course, never being able to buy anything is never fun. C tier. Evan is the next auto-unlocked character. He gives you 3 hearts, makes all enemies start on a higher AI value, but to compensate, nets you 1.5x more coins, which will be nice for when we talk about shops later in the video. High AI values are never super great, especially if you're dogshit at FNAF games like I am, but overall he is nowhere near the worst character to choose. C tier. Cassidy is the last character you'll unlock by default. She only gives you 1 heart and makes every single enemy start at maximum aggression, and forces you to pick a penalty every single night. She also will never allow you to see shops. Instead, you can use your money to remove penalties in animatronics. I don't care that you can remove things. Having to pick a penalty every night whilst also only having 1 heart is pure AIDS. F tier. Henry is the first character on the list to unlock. However, you can unlock them in pretty much any order you want. Henry is unlocked by beating at least 1 night while using Michael, Elizabeth, Evan, and Cassidy. Something that should be very easy to pull off. He gives you 3 hearts and gives you way more options when picking enemies, penalties, and shop items. However, you will be forced to pick more enemies and more penalties. The last thing you're going to want to do is give yourself more threats. So even though your option pool is bigger, the cons outweigh the pros here a lot. D tier. Gabriel can be unlocked by having 2 penalties active in a run that affect Freddy. He gives you 3 hearts, gives you a guaranteed shop every single night. But as a downside, each character comes with a few of their penalties already added. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, and a lot of character-specific penalties are horrific. Sure, you may never have to pick a penalty after beating a night, but I really don't care about that as much as getting butt-fucked by character penalties. F tier. Jeremy can be unlocked by getting a power outage on night 3 and beyond and still surviving the night. Generally one of the harder characters to unlock. He gives you 5 hearts. You start the run with 500% power instead of 100%. The nights are shorter than usual, but as a downside, your power carries over from night to night. But don't let that fool you. 500% power is a lot of fucking power, and if you're good at enemy building, you can easily make that last a long time. And 5 hearts is a fuck ton. Easy A tier character. Susie will be unlocked if you die to Chica twice in a single night and then beat that night. She gives 3 hearts. Each enemy starts at max AI value, but you gain 1 life after you beat a night. Now, at first glance, this may sound really bad, but I actually had my second best run ever using Susie, and it's 100% because of that life gain. With characters always on max difficulty, there's no way for them to get harder, so you'll get used to them at their hardest difficulty pretty quickly. Sure, she's not the best, but she definitely isn't as bad as she sounds. B tier. Fritz is unlocked by having 100 or more coins at one time in a single run. He gives you 2 hearts, and your lives are attached to the number of coins you have. To be specific, for every 50 coins you have, that equals 1 heart. Overall, this character is more confusing than it will ever be useful, actively discouraging you from ever buying anything. You're better off just using Michael, as there's no real downside. D tier. Fitzgerald is unlocked by beating Night 5 in a run whilst only picking the leftmost enemies and penalties. I actually struggled a bit unlocking this character, so what does he do? Well, you start with 3 hearts, and each enemy and penalty are randomized each night, meaning the 3 enemies you pick on Night 1 will be different on Night 2, and you can also pay to reroll, as well as getting a shop every single night. This character really just serves as what I'm going to call a challenge character. You would never actually want to bring this character into a legitimate run, and because of that, I'm giving him an F tier. Sally is easily the most unique character out of all of the normal ones, and I'll explain what normal means in a bit. You unlock her by beating a night with both Percy Poodle and Rowan Rat on max AI values. Sally introduces a brand new mechanic, that being the pup pal from Playtime with Percy. It works in the exact same way as in that game, and the best part, your progress on the night is tied to it. No more waiting out the night. You will have to complete the games on the pup pal for the night to end. Again, this goes to serve as more of a challenge character than anything else, as playing Sally will by default make the game much harder. And because of this, I'm giving her F tier. Again, not because she's not a fun character, but because if you're trying to get far in a run, she's not the character for you. And finally, we have the man himself, Scott Cawthon, who is unlocked by completing Night 3 with every other character in the game. And of course, since he's the final character, he has the most interesting mechanic. He himself doesn't have any abilities, instead letting you pick the pros and cons from every other character in the game, allowing you to mix and match your favorite pieces from other characters. You don't need me to tell you that Scott is a broken character. I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. Easy S tier. And boom, that's every single playable character in Too Many Nights. So now we can start talking about the items that can be bought in the shop. I won't be going over each and every one, since there are literally a fuck ton to talk about, and this video is already long enough. But I do want to talk about some of the best ones to look out for. Early Out is an item that will make each night 2 seconds shorter. More Power will start each night with 10% more power. More Room will give you more options when picking animatronics. The Empress will give you 1 life and give you more options when picking animatronics. The Emperor will decrease every animatronic's AI value by 2. The Chariot will have you start each night with 15% more power. The Hanged Man will remove 2 random penalties you have activated. Death removes a random enemy. The Moon makes each hour 3 seconds shorter. Fritz Children's Bible will make items you can't afford never show up in shops, and Sparked will make sparks appear randomly on cameras, and touching them will increase your power. Those are all of the yummy mashed potatoes in my belly items that I like to look out for in the shop. Again, there are a lot more, but I think it would just be really boring to go over all of them. But there you go. That's everything you need to know, and as far as I'm aware, everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I would highly recommend you give this game a try. It is some of the most fun I've ever had since starting this channel, and I actually plan on doing some Too Many Nights streams here on this channel. If that's something you're interested, let me know. Also, if you were interested, Too Many Nights is actually getting a version 2.1, and it's being worked on as I'm writing this. I'm super excited to see what it has to offer once it's fully released. This game is so incredibly unique and combines 2 of my favorite game genres of all time into one amazing game. The art style is unique, the community input is fantastic, and of course, the gameplay and gameplay loop are impeccable. One of my favorite parts about making videos on this channel is picking out the games. I'll spend days playing random FNAF games, and most of them don't really catch my attention like some do. Some videos I've made on this channel were because of pure nostalgia, while others were made because I played something that I found amazing, and today is no different. The game I will be talking about today is called A Bite at Freddy's. I began playing this game like I would any other, and if I'm being totally honest, this might be my new favorite FNAF game I've ever played. I feel this game blows even Joy of Creation story mode out of the water. My god, it's so good. A Bite at Freddy's begins with a cutscene reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, with us in the perspective of Freddy. We look around as two people talk about the new animatronics. We can look side to side and see Chica and Bonnie. And this is where I already want to pause and say how f***ing cool these characters look. This game went totally against what every other FNAF game does when it comes to designs. Rather than having the characters just look creepy and dingy in some stanky pizzeria, these characters are based off of Westernism, with each character having a big goofy cowboy hat. I love the change of pace. I also really like how the characters have really long faces. I think it's super unique in comparison to what a lot of other FNAF games create. But enough gawking, let's get into the gameplay. On night 1, which is really called Course 1, which I'm just realizing as I'm typing this, I should probably explain, so I'll quickly do that. Rather than having multiple nights, A Bite at Freddy's just has multiple courses that I could only assume means a meal course, since in this game, instead of having to survive until a certain time, you have to survive long enough to see 3 meals served. Let me explain a bit more, since I know that still doesn't make any sense. Unlike most FNAF games where you're totally alone, in A Bite at Freddy's, your manager is also working in the building with you. His job is to make all of the food, and your job is to confirm its delivery. You might be asking, what the f does delivery mean? And I'll explain it to you, even though you could just open a dictionary. Throughout the course of each course, odd sentence, but whatever, your manager will get a meal ready. Each meal has 3 stages they go through. Preparing, where the meal is being prepared in the kitchen, if you couldn't have guessed. Sending, where the meal is put on a conveyor belt and transported to different locations in the building. And delivered, where the meal has made it to a designated location and awaits confirmation. The next meal will not start being prepared until the last meal has been confirmed. There are 3 meals that need to be confirmed each night. The first meal will be delivered to Party Room A, the second to Party Room B, and the third straight to your office where you can collect it and eat it like a little piglet. To confirm an order, you have to go to the location where it was delivered, whether that be the camera or your office, and just click confirm. Then the next meal will begin to be prepared. Once you confirm the order in your office, you will complete the course. Course 1 introduces 2 characters, Talk Show Bonnie and Talk Show Chica. Talk Show Bonnie will move around the restaurant and will take one of 2 paths. Path A, he will make his way to the entrance of our office. Once he enters, you will be able to see him in one of 3 locations in your office. You'll have to shut off the lights in your office until you see him leave, where you'll then be free to turn your lights back on. I think this mechanic alone is pretty boring, but it's made much more interesting because Bonnie will attempt to hide from you in different locations. It's never hard to spot him, but if you're ever super focused on something else, which you definitely will be, it can be pretty easy to miss him. It's incredibly simple, but just makes the game that much more interesting. Path B that Bonnie can take leads him to the kitchen, which brings up a small point I want to mention. If you look at the kitchen camera, you'll actually be able to see your manager making the food, or you'll actually only be able to see his big goofy cowboy hat. I think it's pretty silly, and I also think it's a lot sillier that when Bonnie is in the kitchen, he chooses to completely ignore your manager. I guess the taste of my asshole is just so much more desirable. And of course, our manager pays no mind to the fact a murderous robot with no legs is right behind him, which actually brings up another point I have with these characters. Similar to Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, the characters don't have any legs. Since they're meant to always be behind something, designing legs would never make any sense from a design standpoint. But because these animatronics have no legs, they just drag themselves around, which, even if it's technically not as threatening as a 7-foot tall, totally mobile robot is, it's totally much more creepy. Anyways, Bonnie will enter the kitchen camera and attempt to crawl onto the conveyor belt. On each camera where a conveyor belt is present, you'll have access to a closed door button. When pressed, if you're terrible at context clues, I'll piece this together for you, the door to the conveyor belt will obviously close. This poses a problem with meals not being able to be sent. But I never once had a problem with that, so I don't care. Once you close the door, within 3 seconds, Bonnie will leave the kitchen camera and you'll be free to reopen the door. You might ask yourself, why would I not keep the doors closed the whole course and only open them to let meals through? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I really needed a segue into explaining another crucial mechanic: power. A bite at Freddy's does power much differently than other FNAF games do. In this case, you want your power low all the time. Performing tasks will cause the power to increase. These include closing conveyor doors, stopping the conveyor, which I'll explain more in a second, and turning off the lights for Bonnie, which, by the way, doesn't make sense. Why would turning the lights off cause power to be used? I don't know. Don't ask. And a few other things that wouldn't make sense if I brought them up right now. If your power ever reaches 100%, it will overheat, and you'll have to wait for it to slowly decrease back down to 0% before you can use any of the devices that cause it to increase. So basically, if your generator hits 100%, you lose, because there's a very small chance where that happens and you still beat the course. Anyways, getting back to Bonnie. Let's say you don't close the conveyor door and Bonnie hops on the conveyor. What happens then? Well, in that case, Bonnie will ride the conveyor all the way up to your office. There will be a noticeable sound cue when he does, or any other animatronic is doing this. When you hear them approaching, you'll turn to the conveyor and pull the stop conveyor lever. This will, as the name suggests, stop the conveyor and temporarily shine a light down it, where you'll be able to see the lovely death robot staring back at you. Just like the doors, after about 3 seconds he'll leave and you can let go of the lever. So this brings up an interesting balancing idea. Let's say your power is pretty high and you see that Bonnie is about to jump on the conveyor. You're scared that if you use the door, your power will go up to 100%, and you obviously don't want that to happen. You actually have some options here. You can either risk it and close the door anyways, or you can choose to allow Bonnie to get on the conveyor and stop him at your office later when your power has gone down to a more comfortable level. Considering that, once they hop on the conveyor, it takes quite a bit of time before they reach your office. When no power users are being used, the power slowly decreases. That's something important I probably should have mentioned earlier. But another important thing to note about stopping them in your office is that stopping the conveyor makes your power increase significantly faster than if you were to have just closed the door. So it's really something you'll need to learn to feel out while you're playing in order to make the smartest choice. Now, let's talk about the other character this course adds, Talk Show Chica. Chica works somewhat similarly to Bonnie, where she'll wander around the building and eventually choose one of two paths. On path A, Chica will head to party room B and attempt to hop on the conveyor like Bonnie does on the kitchen camera. Just like Bonnie, you may close the conveyor door, and then in around 3 seconds, Chica will leave and you can open it again. Path B, on the other hand, is very interesting and is one of my favorite mechanics in this game just because of how goofy it is. Like Bonnie, Chica's other path will have her head straight to your office. However, where Bonnie will hide, Chica will sit behind your desk. Along with a notable sound cue you will hear, you will also be able to see her big goofy cowboy hat slowly rising up from behind your desk. When you see her there, you need to, no joke, grab a toy gun from off your desk like this is Moosey, aim for between Chica's eyes, and fire a fake projectile at her before she fires her fake projectile at you. If you win the standoff, Chica will exit your office. This has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in a FNAF game, ever. I could talk all day about how much sense this doesn't make, but this entire game is super silly, so I'm not taking it super seriously here. I love this mechanic. I think it's unique and goofy. Should I call it goofy one more time? Have I put that in the script enough? Whatever. Let's move on. The second course of the game activates Talk Show Freddy, and with him comes a new camera and a new mechanic. This was super interesting to me. I've never before seen a FNAF game like this add a whole new camera to a night. This caught me off guard and I was very pleasantly surprised. Freddy, unsurprisingly, works similar to Bonnie and Chica. Again, he will wander around the building and choose one of two paths. I'm going to give you a quick spoiler alert. This pick a path system is the same for every character in the game, so I'm going to not bring it up for the remaining of the characters. Freddy's first possible path has him go to party room A and attempt to climb onto the conveyor. Just close the conveyor door, yada yada yada, you'll be fine. His other path, however, has him go to the new camera, which is vent camera. When you click on the vent camera, a few other lines will appear on the map, showing you which cameras have access to the vent, those being both of the party rooms and the hallway. I've actually never really talked about the hallway, but it will become more important later, so let me just quickly explain some small things about it now. The hallway in A Bite at Freddy's acts as a type of hub where you will be able to commonly see most of the animatronics. Multiple of the characters have a few different states on this camera, which can help you understand and be able to predict what their next moves will be. For example, Chica has a chance to appear on the hallway camera very far away. Looking at the layout of the building and where the camera is placed, you'll be able to tell that she is directly outside of your office door. So, if you can make time to catch a peek at that hallway cam, you'll be able to start a mental timer in your head for how long it will be until Chica enters your office. And because of this, you also know that she won't be attempting to hop on the conveyor in Party Room B. Anyways, back to Freddy and the vent. His second path also leads him to Party Room A, where instead of getting on the conveyor, you will see him climbing into the vent. After this happens, you will be able to hear a notable vent sound cue, alerting you to the fact he's up there and hotboxing your vent. When you hear Freddy in your vent, you must go to the vent camera and turn on the vent fan. This will cause a fan to drop down and block Freddy's path. He will then be forced to turn around, and after 3 seconds when he leaves, you can safely turn the vent fan back off. Turning on this fan works the same as a conveyor door, so it also increases your power. There is something really cool and really quirky and also a little bit skibbity about Freddy and this vent, however. In this vent, Freddy has 3 notable states. I'm not exactly sure how the game decides which state Freddy will be in, but he has a state far from the camera, close to the camera, and the final, very important state where he's very close to the camera and looking down into your office at you. When Freddy is in this peeping Tom state, if you activate the vent fan, it will actually chop Freddy's f***ing head off and it will fall into your f***ing office. What does this do, you ask? Well, when I was playing, I assumed it was just a funny little gag. The only thing I noticed was that without his head, Freddy was a little harder to spot on the cameras since the characters' heads are the most noticeable part of their bodies. What I didn't notice, however, and only found out while doing some extra research for this video, was the fact that when Freddy's head is off, his aggression increases dramatically. So much so that he will move from his start location to the party room and to the vent in a matter of seconds. And when you get rid of him, you will only have a few seconds until he's back. You know, with how many times I've lost to Headless Freddy, you'd think I'd have picked up on this, but I never did. I guess I'm just a fucking moron. Course 3 adds the most frustrating character in this whole game, Foxy. Foxy will start on a different camera from the other animatronics talked about so far. This is pretty standard when it comes to Foxy. However, for some unknown reason, instead of being Western based like the rest of the characters, for some reason, Foxy is a scientist. What? Why? I fail to understand the thought process here. But whatever, that's not really important. Let's just go over what this goober does. Foxy's first path leads him to the kitchen just like Bonnie, where he will attempt to hop on the conveyor. What the f ever, you guys get it and don't care. Why is he frustrating is all you want to know. Foxy's second path leads us to the backroom camera, a camera that, at this point, has served no real purpose. In this camera, Foxy will have 3 states, each one bringing him closer and closer to some hanging wires, with the third state having him about to bite the shit out of them and kill himself. When Foxy is in this final state, you must press a button on that camera that will reboot the cameras. This also acts as a shock and will stop Foxy and move him back to the hall or main room. As far as I noticed, restarting the camera doesn't cause your power to increase, but it does make the cameras unusable for a small period of time. If you choose to not stop Foxy, which I wouldn't recommend, it's borderline game over. While you don't lose straight away, your camera's power will start to run on your office's generator, and as a side effect of that, every time you open your cameras to use them, it will increase your power, something it hadn't been doing prior. So while you don't necessarily lose when Foxy does this, with how much checking the cameras is necessary to beat any of the courses, you're basically f***ed. But after beating this course, you're actually done. Unlike typical FNAF games where you have 5 nights, A Bite at Freddy's only has 3. I definitely think this is an interesting approach, and also certainly helps with the game not feeling too repetitive, which, by the way, this game is great at making itself feel fresh all the time, but I'll get to that more later. After successfully fulfilling all 3 of these courses, we sit down with our manager and have a nice meal. Only thing that's a little off is we can see a twisted, malformed, deformed, crippled version of Freddy crawling near the table. That's when we're booted back to the menu and we see we have the option to do one final course. The final course acts as this game's 6th night, and it adds a brand new character, Threadbare. Lore-wise, Threadbare was an old Freddy robot they used to use, switching him out for a new model after a kid bit his face off in 1987. Are you kidding me? The bite of 87 in this game was committed by a child on an animatronic. That's hilarious. This game is so non-serious. I love it so much. Anyways, what does Threadbare do? Well, as I'm sure you could expect, he acts similarly to Freddy. His first path has him go to Party Room B and try to hop on the conveyor, and his second path has him enter the vent through the hallway. The only difference you'll notice from Threadbare and the rest of the characters is that Threadbare actually has a third path he can take, that being going down to the back room where Foxy can go and immediately making you have to restart the cameras. He's not forgiving like Foxy is. Foxy has 3 stages, giving you ample warning to prepare yourself. When Threadbare enters your back room and reams you in the asshole while pulling your hair from behind, you need to immediately drop what you're doing and deal with his bullshit. But after beating this course, the game is over. Psych, fucking idiot, we still got custom courses to talk about. You might be thinking, why are you even talking about this? Custom nights are boring as and usually I would agree with you, but this game does something super awesome and I really need to talk about it, both to pad for runtime and because it's just sick. Similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Custom Night, there are multiple pre-built custom modes to play through, but unlike FNAF 2, each mode in A Bite at Freddy's adds a unique challenge on top of the custom AI. Let's start with just beating the custom course on a totally random AI number, not all 20, not all 0, and not using a pre-built challenge. Upon beating it, you will be rewarded a yellow slip, which is pretty standard in FNAF games. It starts to get interesting when you beat the custom course with every character's AI set to 0, in which case you will be given a roll of toilet paper. This is incredibly stupid, but I love it. It's so goofy that this was even thought of. It's the small things that matter in games sometimes, and this proves that point. Now, let's get to the challenges, starting with Basket Hunt. Basket Hunt has Freddy, Bonnie, and Threadbare active, Bonnie and Freddy having an AI value of 10, and Threadbare having an AI value of 5. The extra challenge of this course is that, after a meal has been prepped, the basket it's in will be sent to a totally random room. You'll have to search through the cameras like a Where's Waldo in order to find each basket that comes through. Not only is this a super cool addition that the creator 100% didn't need to add, our manager can also be seen with a bag over his head. Since he claimed we were so good at working, he could do it without looking. Because of this, it's probably why the meals get sent to the wrong location, because he can't see where he's going. And on top of that, after beating the course, the final meal that gets sent to your office has a boot instead of food, because again, the f***er can't see anything. I think this is such a cool little extra cherry on top. The level of detail is so great, and again, wasn't even necessary. I love everything about this game. I actually don't have any complaints up until this point. The next challenge is Haunted Roulette, arguably the weakest of the challenges. In this mode, the characters active are Freddy and Chica with an AI value of 10, and Bonnie and Foxy with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, you get a unique item called the Shocker. Throughout the night, key tools you use may become haunted, those tools being your toy gun, light button, vent fan, and conveyor lever. Throughout the course, while you're being attacked, you'll have to keep a close eye on these tools and use your shocker on them if you notice they're haunted. If you try to use a tool while it's haunted, the actual tool will jump scare you, which is just fucking, say it with me, goofy. On top of that, beating the night rewards you with a haunted meal basket that, when grabbing, will also jump scare you. What a treat. Coming in the opposite of hot, we have the next challenge called Cold Kitchen. This challenge consists of Freddy and Bonnie with an AI value of 10, and Chica and Threadbare with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, the heater in the restaurant broke, and to compensate, our manager is wearing earmuffs, which you can see on the kitchen camera. How cute. But this course's challenge is directly affected by the cold. Not only is it f***ing snowing in the building, Jesus Christ, but occasionally it'll get so cold that you won't be able to do shit. In order to stop this from happening, you have to occasionally go to the back room camera and reboot the cameras. This again releases an electric shock, which I guess heats up the building. Doesn't make much sense, but f*** you, it's what we're working with. Upon beating this course, you'll be given a nice little snowman. The next challenge, called Out of Service, contains Freddy and Foxy with an AI value of 5, and Chica and Bonnie with an AI value of 10. The special, super cool, kooky, and funny twist being the conveyor doors don't fucking work. If you recall earlier, I said you're able to allow animatronics through the conveyor and stop them at your office later, and doing this gives you a good opportunity to think and balance your power. Guess what, lips? That can't happen here. If an animatronic gets onto your conveyor, you're f***ed, because on top of the doors not working, the lever in your office doesn't work either, so you won't be able to stop a goddamn thing. This mode led me to develop the strategy of only checking the kitchen cam, party room cams, vent cam, and back room cam, since the rest aren't very important. Eventually, I started glancing at the hallway cam just to see where Chica was and if Freddy was going to be climbing into the vent soon, but I didn't start doing that until a later night I'll talk about in a second. Anyways, beating Out of Service gets you finger puppets of Freddy and Bonnie. What about Chica and Foxy finger puppets? I hear you bitching about. Shut the f*** up. I'll get there in a second. The next challenge is Lunch Rush, which has all 5 animatronics at an AI value of 10. The extra challenge of this night is that you have to confirm 7 orders when every other night you've only had to confirm 3. And with every animatronic at 10, this is a course where your nerves really start to get tested. And this is also the course where I started checking the hallway camera. After beating this course, you get a Bonnie clock. Why is it Bonnie? I don't know. Because rabbits are fast? I don't know. Get off my ass, man. I'm trying my best here. The final built-in challenge is called Full Course, which has all characters at an AI value of 20. This is just as you'd expect it to be, but something important to note, A Bite at Freddy's has characters activate in an order. Even with their AI values cranked up as high as they are, on Full Course, each character still won't begin moving all at the same time. Don't get me wrong, this challenge is still incredibly difficult, it just isn't incredibly difficult right out of the gate. Beating this challenge gives you the Foxy and Chica finger puppets you were bitching about earlier. By the way, I still have yet to beat Full Course. I know that I can, I just haven't had time to pour the attempts in needed to do so. Now, what if I told you there was a challenge even harder than Full Course? Harder than all 520 mode? Would you believe me? Well, you should, because I'm not just bringing this up for no f***ing reason. If, while in the custom course menu, you manually set all the characters' AI values to 20 and then start the night, you will enter max mode. It's very similar to Full Course, but with one major difference. Every character activates right at the start of the night. You might think that's not a big change, but I promise you it's noticeable. You may not notice right away, but as the game goes on, your power will slowly start to creep out of control. It's insane what making the characters start at different times can do in terms of balancing. It's crazy how much more difficult it is when played this way. Even though the characters are just as aggressive, with them starting at the same time, you'd think that they were f***ing at 21. But if you somehow manage to beat this challenge, you'll be awarded with a Fredbear finger puppet, which confused me when I read about it, because as we know, a Fredbear doesn't actually exist in this game. So who is this? My only possible guess is that Fredbear is just Threadbare before he got his face all eaten up on, but I guess I'm not totally sure. Before I wrap this video up, there's one more point I want to mention. I guess A Bite at Freddy's is actually in a series of games. I didn't know this until doing some research while writing this script. The creator of this game has made some other ones that supposedly tie into A Bite at Freddy's. If you want to see me do more digging into those other games and talk about them, please let me know in the comments. But that's all A Bite at Freddy's has to offer. This game is so fun and goofy, it can definitely be challenging, but never did I feel like the game was unbalanced or unfun. As you all know, I'm absolutely terrible at FNAF games, but most modes in this game, aside from the all 20 modes, actually didn't give me that much trouble. Maybe that means it's just too easy, but I don't feel like challenge is all that defines a FNAF game. This game has so much character and thought put into it, I don't have the words to fully express my appreciation for this game, so I hope that this video did a better job at that. Crack cocaine. Have you ever thought about trying it? Have you ever tried it? I haven't. However, I might as well have. After playing the game I'll be talking about today, I would imagine that I was acting the same as someone who was on cocaine, booger, sugar, crack, white shit. What is said game, you may be asking? Well, the game I'll be talking about today is called Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. This game is really fucking hard. I called Mary's Arcade the Dark Souls of FNAF fan games. This is the Elden Ring. Granted, I will be the first to admit that I'm absolutely terrible at FNAF games, no doubt about it, but I struggled more with this one than with Mary's Arcade, so eat my nuts, it's harder. Graveyard Shift at Freddy's also shares one glaring similarity with another game I've covered on this channel, A Shadow Over Freddy's. That similarity being, the creator of the game has removed it from GameJolt, and finding it isn't very easy. You guys hated it when I called A Shadow Over Freddy's banned, so I won't be making the mistake of calling it that again to avoid the outcome of you all pissing yourselves. But I will say that finding this game was a little more difficult than finding A Shadow Over Freddy's, since the developer of the game is doing everything in her power to remove uploads of it. But rest assured, if you look long enough, you'll find it. She can't beat all of us. The reason this game was deleted, as I'm sure you could probably guess, is because the creator is a slimy, greasy little hobgoblin degenerate. Of course, it's always the devs of amazing games who end up being the worst. Hint hint, Jonachrome. But I'll touch on that at the end of the video. Separating the art from the artist, Graveyard Shift at Freddy's is honestly a masterpiece. There's definitely some things about it I want to complain about. Go figure, that's pretty much all I do on this channel, but I can't neglect how fantastic it really is. The level of detail is impeccable, and I'm excited to share it here today with you. Before I get into this game, I do want to give a warning for those who are not familiar. If you are light sensitive or have a condition like epilepsy, it might be best for you to just turn this on for sound in the background, as a lot of this game has flashing lights, and I will be showing it on screen. Just had to get that out of the way. So without further ado, let's dive into my most recent therapy session topic, Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. A Graveyard Shift at Freddy's begins with a text-based cutscene. Get used to this because you'll be seeing way more. We're told from the view of a news broadcast that a journalist by the name of Sam Rodriguez has been missing, following a story about an eatery called Freddy Bear's. After Sam went into the building to investigate, he's never been seen since. Fun fact, we actually play as Sam, so this indicates to us that this news broadcast must be happening sometime in the future. I will talk about the rest of these text-based cutscenes at the end of the video. I just wanted to really establish that we are playing as Sam right now. So again, I'll cover the rest of them and I'll recap this night's one, but for now, we're just going to talk about the game like I like to do. Night 1 begins and we open to our office. This is where I want to pause for a moment just to say that the graphics in this damn game, I'm not ever one to give too much of a shit about video game graphics. I care much more about gameplay and story. My favorite game is Undertale, and the graphics of that game are kinda ass, but god damn, this game looks great. Anyways, on night 1, we get a call from the owner of the restaurant. His name is Mr. Raglan. Raglan tells us about how the shift is going to work, of course, leaving out the fact that the animatronics move in typical FNAF fashion. The mechanics of this game are solid, I can't lie. There's not a whole lot to complain about, except one teensy tiny little problem. To start, we have cameras like any other FNAF game, and in our office we have a big ticket booth in front of us. At any time we can pull down a large metal door to block it off, and when we do, a hydraulics meter slowly goes down. If it ever empties, it will open back up. Once you open the door, that hydraulic meter will start to climb back up. Also in our office is a light that lights up the ticket window, which thankfully doesn't run on any power, and we can use it as much as we want. However, you do have to pull down the glass covering it every time you push it, something I just found a little weird. On your desk, you'll find a router. If you switch through your cameras too quickly, which I assure you, you will be doing quite frequently, the cameras will begin to go, as Mr. Raglan said, quite funky. The screen just gets super pixelated and you won't be able to see dick. To fix this, you'll need to turn off the router in your office for a few seconds and then flip it back on. Super simple. If you look back in the cameras, you'll see an alarm button. This is used to stop animatronics. I know that explanation is vague, but once I start talking about the animatronics, it will make much more sense, so just hang in there, champ. Lastly, you might notice the other button in the camera, mentioning a speed up. Remember when I mentioned there's one teensy tiny little mechanic I'm not the biggest fan of? This is that mechanic. You might notice there are no camera buttons. That's because in a Graveyard Shift at Freddy's, you have no control over the camera. cameras. No. Instead, there's a switch time visible on the cameras that slowly goes down. Once it's empty, it will automatically switch to the next camera, starting from camera 1 and going to camera 7, then restarting at 1 again. Using the speed up button will make the time go down significantly faster. You can, however, drop your camera to stall this timer. If it hasn't yet sunk in how soul-suckingly excruciating this mechanic is yet, just give it a bit. You'll soon understand. There is one more mechanic in this game, but it isn't introduced until night 3, so I'll cover it then. But now, I should probably talk about night 1 and the threats it poses. In night 1, there's only one threat, and that's Bonnie. Bonnie will move around the cameras until he moves into an attack phase. There are 3 different ways that Bonnie can get into your office. How is that possible if there's only the ticket window? I hear you asking in anticipation for my genius 200 IQ response. Well, in addition to the ticket window, there's actually a door to your office behind you. Some animatronics will be able to attack you from that door as well, but if you really want to shart your pants, the catch is you can't fucking turn around. So, how do you deal with animatronics that attack from that door? Well, that's simple. You just don't let them get there. And that's where the alarm mechanic comes in handy. Most places Bonnie goes aren't very important. There are only 2 cameras that really matter when it comes to Bonnie, camera 5 and camera 6. When Bonnie first reaches camera 5, he will be in either one of 2 locations. One location where he's standing in the middle of the room, which I will be calling the safe location, and another location where he's standing right next to the employees only door, which happens to be pretty much right behind you. I will be calling this location the bad location. If you ever see Bonnie in the safe location, then you know you can just let him keep moving, as he will always move into camera 6 next. But if Bonnie is in the bad location, you'll have to use your alarm to distract him, and when you do, he'll very creepily look at you, which I think is really cool, and once you use the alarm on him, you'll know that he'll move to camera 6. Once Bonnie has made it to camera 6, he once again has 2 locations he can be at: a safe location where he's standing far away from the camera, and a bad location where he's standing close to the camera and peeking around a corner or doorway. I can't really tell. It's kind of hard to see on cameras a lot of the time. Same with camera 5. If Bonnie's in a safe location, you can ignore him, and if Bonnie is in the bad location, you just use the alarm on him to distract him and set him on the right path. Sounds difficult? Well, keep in mind, you can't really check cameras 5 and 6 because of the stupid fucking timer. Once Bonnie makes it to camera 6 and is in a safe location, or has been distracted by the alarm, he will then skip camera 7 and go straight to your window. This is another point where I really just want to sit back and look at how amazing this game's animations are. When Bonnie, or any animatronic for that matter, comes to your window, the animation quality they have while doing so is incredible. But obviously, when Bonnie is at your window, close the door, wait for his footsteps to be heard before reopening it. And congrats, you've dealt with Bonnie's cycle. He's just gonna keep doing that over and over again. Have fun. I actually think that Bonnie is the most difficult animatronic to deal with. You'll understand why when I talk about everybody else. Even though his mechanic is really easy, when you pair it with what everybody else does, his easily becomes the hardest. That was just night 1. We have a bunch more characters to talk about, so I hope you're ready. Night 2 gives us Miss Thickums herself, Chica, and her cupcake, which the game calls Cream. If I'm being honest with you, this game makes me do the same. Chica is pretty easy to deal with. She can only attack from the ticket window, and she'll only appear at the ticket window if you find her on the cameras. When you do, she'll bolt off at the speed of Tyson Gay, and when you pull your camera down, she'll be leaning into your window. All you have to do is close the gate, but you will notice that it takes Chica much longer to leave than Bonnie, so that's just something to make you rip your ball sack off and throw it in a river. Cream, on the other hand, is not easy to deal with, and in all honesty makes me want to stick my willy in a beehive. Cream appears on camera 7, and similar to Foxy from FNAF 1, has multiple different stages that she will move through before entering her attack phase. The first 2 phases both have sound cues, which are just the sounds of a vent. However, upon entering her 3rd stage, she does this really awesome thing where she doesn't make fucking noise at all, and you're left to just shit your britches and hope you both notice and remember to check camera 7. Once she reaches her final phase, all you need to do is use the alarm on her camera and she'll piss off. But it is critical to keep in mind that you also have to take care of all the other bullshit this game has to throw at you, including the stupid fucking automatically switching cameras. I can't handle it. Night 3 introduces a character that makes me want to wipe my ass with sandpaper, Barry the Bat. Barry adds something that this game didn't need at all, something so atrociously frustrating that I want to rip all my teeth out, get dentures, and then rip all the teeth out of the dentures. Barry the Bat effectively acts as a music box. In a game where you can't fucking control which camera you're looking at, isn't that fantastic? No! Ding ding ding, we have a fucking genius in the crowd, guys! Barry the Bat is on camera 5, which I'm very grateful for since that's also where Bonnie makes his dumb little idiot pick a path decision. So at least I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone on this camera. I should say that Barry's music box isn't literally a music box. Instead, music will be playing, and when music is playing, Barry doesn't move. However, the music is on a timer. After a certain point, which is indicated by a small little white bar, the music will stop, and you will have to turn it back on by going to camera 5. While the music box is not playing, Barry will make her way through 5 different states, just like Cream. However, there's also this really silly little side effect where once Barry moves forward a state, she will never move back for the rest of the night. That means that if the music stops and you're busy dealing with Bonnie, staring at Cream, waiting 8 centuries for Chica to leave your door, dealing with some bullshit that the other animatronics do that I'll be talking about soon, or just scratching her ass and smelling it, then Barry will just move her happy ass through all the stages, and there will be no way for you to make her go back. God, if you can hear me, please, just kill me. Can you do that for me? Thank you. Night 4 introduces Sheriff Slithers. Look at this little fucking goon. This little ugly, slithery shit. This little goop-ass snake. I just fucking... This motherfucker right here rapes me with that hat on. He rides me like a cowboy, ropes me up with a lasso, and stabs me with those little stupid boot spikes. I hate this little idiot so much I can't even describe it to you. This little moron right here is why this game is so goddamn hard. Let me explain. From a glance, Sheriff Slither's mechanic is simple. He will appear on a camera, and all you have to do is look at him for a small amount of time, and he'll happily go away. But, and this is a very large but, he can appear on any camera besides 7 at complete random. He makes a sound cue, but my god is it quiet. So quiet it might not even fucking be there. The amount of times I've died just because of this little dunce is immeasurable. His mechanic is so easy, but paired with every other mechanic you have to deal with that is also annoying as hell, this little guy becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. I'd say I'd want to rip my hair out because of this guy, but I already have, and I've also waited for it to grow back just so that I could rip it out again. Fuck Sheriff Slithers, he's a bitch. But now I get to talk to you about Night 5, and if you know anything about the relationship between Night 5 and me in FNAF games, then you'd know I'm about to complain even more because not only is our relationship toxic, it's also incredibly abusive. But I need to get this out of my system. Night 5 introduces the man, the myth, the used car salesman, Freddy, or who this game chooses to call Freddy Bear or Dreddy Bear in this night. Dreddy Bear, if I were to describe him to you, I'd probably say he's like if you took a pile of shit that's been pissed on, go ahead and throw it in the microwave for like 10 minutes while it's in a Ziploc bag, take it out, open up that puppy, stick your face right in it, and just take a big whiff. Just a long 8-second inhale. That is what Dreddy Bear is like in this godforsaken game. Freddy moves his way through the cameras like most other characters, except there's a really sick and totally awesome little quirk about him. Similar to Barry the Bat, there's no way to ever make Dreddy Bear move backward. Once he reaches your office, it's game over. Not even closing the ticket window will make him go away. You're just fucked. So what you have to do is constantly look at him for as long as you can. He can't move while you're looking at him. Now, let's think about some things that could possibly make watching Dreddy Bear difficult, shall we? Well, to start, there's Cream, who you constantly have to check up on after you hear her second sound cue. Then we've got Barry, whose bitch ass needs me to watch her camera for when the music stops playing and starts throwing a little temper tantrum. We can't forget my favorite little fucker, Sheriff Slithers, who can appear on any camera at complete fucking random. Oh, and let's not forget the most infuriating part about needing to constantly watch the character. It's kind of fucking hard to do that when the cameras switch on the goddamn own and there's jack fuck shit I can do about it. So Dreddy Bear, Dreddy Boy, Dreddy Butt, Dreddy Bitch, Dreddy Boo isn't super fun to deal with. But just For a moment, let's imagine what it would be like if you were to beat Night 5. In fact, I'll even show you exactly what happens. What reward do you get for all of your suffering? Come on, let's take a look together. That's right. Dreddy Bear says, "Fuck yo goddamn window, little insignificant idiot," and just rips that shit right open and butt fucks you anyways. And yes, that is actually how the game ends. Is that not insane to you? Put aside the fact how badass the final cutscene looked, but just ask yourself, was it worth it? Because damn, rip main character. Imagine doing the impossible just to be fucked anyways. Absolutely crazy. Oh yeah, and in true FNAF style, there's also a challenge mode called Grave Danger mode, but I'm sure you could already have taken a guess. I didn't even pour a minute of my time into that bullshit. But that's what Graveyard Shift at Freddy's has to offer. But there are still 2 more things I want to talk about before we wrap this video up. The first thing I want to mention is the lore of this game. Remember at the beginning of the video when I said I'd get back to those text cutscenes? This is that point of the video, because it's honestly some of the coolest shit I've ever witnessed. Before each night, we're given some text on screen that unveils little pieces of the story, as I've previously mentioned. Before I start talking about the story, I do want to clarify that I don't know the story for certain. What I'm talking about and what I'm about to say is strictly my theory. I've already covered Night 1's pregame text, but I'll do it again. It seems to be straight from a news broadcast where the anchor mentions how their very own Sam Rodriguez has gone missing after doing a story about visiting the Freddy Bear's location, and nobody knows where he is. That's about all this night gives us. However, Night 2's pregame text seems to be from the perspective of the restaurant owner Raglan and a health inspector. The health inspector mentions how the mascots are stinky and, before leaving, notices the floor sounds hollow and is emitting a strange smell. When he mentions this, it noticeably makes Raglan uncomfortable. Raglan states that it's just the cellar where they store things. When the health inspector asks to see, Raglan seems hesitant, but then shows him. At this point, we don't learn what's down there, but we'll get back to that shortly. Night 3's pregame text comes from a journal entry of who I can only assume is Raglan. Raglan writes that he's told the animatronics to not try and leave the establishment, and that one night after closing, a character named Wolfgang tried to leave. However, after nearing the door, he presumably got set ablaze and fucking died, because when Raglan came back the next day, there were ashes left on the floor. Raglan took these ashes and showed them to the other animatronics and told them if they tried to leave, the same would happen to them. This was interesting to me. Not only does leaving the building cause the characters to die, this shows that the characters can die and are therefore alive, which would lead me to believe that they're not just possessed mascots like in most other FNAF games, but are instead their own living organisms, which is honestly deeply disturbing to think about. But if that is the case, then what I still don't understand is why the animatronics would be trying to attack us unless they were maybe being controlled by something else. Night 4's pregame text seems to take place between 2 parties, Sam Rodriguez's parent and their lawyer, and Raglan and his lawyer. They attempt to settle a dispute about where the missing Sam is, and his mother angrily lashes out at Raglan and his lawyer, saying how he just wants to see her boy again, claiming that Raglan's eatery has a known track record for disappearances, and that she knows Raglan is the cause of her son's disappearance. Night 5's pregame text reveals something crazy, though. It's another journal entry from Raglan, this time years after his last, in 2017, the year this game takes place. Raglan questions how it has gone this far, and that they should have gotten him by now, which could only be questioning how Sam has survived so many nights, and how he's surprised that the characters hadn't killed him yet. Raglan mentions how the system they have has always worked so well, which would lead me to believe that he had a plan to have Sam killed by the mascots, and that he has done this multiple times before. He mentions how back when he was in Sam's position years ago, he had made it this far, and on this night, Night 5, Freddy Bear appeared, except he looked and acted way differently. He mentioned how Freddy Bear was, quote, beyond hunger, end quote, which I actually believe is literal. We know in Night 5 that Freddy Bear did look much different from the other animatronic, contorting in unnatural ways, and after that night, we see a newspaper clipping talking about Sam's disappearance and how it came 4 weeks after the disappearance of a health inspector named Gibson Newman. Sound familiar? It should, because that's the exact health inspector mentioned in the Night 2's pregame text. I believe that Sam Raglan is hiring people to work at this establishment so that the mascots can kill them and eat them. Since I believe they're living organisms, that would only mean that they need to get energy somehow, and referencing how Raglan said Freddy Bear was, quote, beyond hunger, end quote, that could only mean that it's because he hadn't killed Sam yet, and Freddy Bear decided on night 5 that he would take killing Sam into his own hands so that they could eat. I believe that both the reason the mascots smell bad and the cellars smelled bad was because the cellar is where the dead bodies of the previous victims were kept, and some of the bodily remains were caked into the fur of the mascots. I believe that the mascots are being controlled by some sort of demons that are confined to the restaurant, and that's why Wolfgang turned into ash when he attempted to leave. Steve Raglan is stuck finding new victims for them to kill and eat so that they don't turn around and kill him instead. That's why he was getting so nervous when he realized they hadn't killed Sam yet. But I don't think that's all. I think the mascots were all fucking with Sam the whole time. Freddy Bear is clearly strong enough to open the ticket booth door when it's down, as seen in night 5, and I'm willing to bet that the others could do that as well. I think that the mascots are smart enough to know that you think you're playing a game and that your office is the safe point, and that the ticket booth door is the way you protect yourself in this, quote, game. I think the animatronics are knowingly playing along. Look at Chica, for example. When she's at the ticket window, she's clearly leaning into your office. Yet, instead of attacking you, she waits for you to close the window, and when you do, you can clearly visibly see her move out of the way so that it can close. These mascots know they can kill you at any time. They just wanted to play along and make you think you have a chance. All the way up to the last second when Freddy Bear finally decides the game's over, even in his final moments telling you your time playing the game is up. So that's what I managed to get out of the story of this game. Am I right about it? Maybe. I have no idea. I know other people have made videos about this game, but I don't like watching videos about games I'm going to make videos about for what should be obvious reasons. But that's all Graveyard Shift at Freddy's has to offer. I think this game is so incredibly amazing. From the gorgeous animation to the amazing sound design, game design, and story design. I struggle to actually find anything of significance to complain about that isn't just a skill issue on my end. Alright guys, the slander is ridiculous. I do not have a Coke can wiener, and I can prove it. I had a lovely fan redraw me. Boom. New art. How does it feel being wrong? You gonna cry? Yeah, you gonna piss your pants because I don't have a penis? Yeah, I was castrated. What are you gonna do about it? Anyways, Jaja, thank you so much for drawing these new poses. I think they look amazing, and I hope all of you get a kick out of them too, and I stop getting comments about my character Skaggs having an absolute sledgehammer penis. I just had to address that. Go follow her on Instagram, link in the description. Let's get to the video. If you've ever played any of the games from the Souls series, you'd know that a lot of the time the bosses, while being incredibly difficult, tend to be able to be broken down into pattern recognition, and once you understand a boss's pattern, beating them becomes much easier. The FNAF game I'll be talking about today feels the same way. Today, I'll be talking about Mary's Arcade, a FNAF fan game that, in its own creator's words, is, quote, a short, simple FNAF game that wasn't overly dependent on story, avoids using FNAF mechanics like doors and masks, and doesn't rely on randomness or luck, just complete skill, end quote. It was that final part about no randomness or luck that really grabbed my attention, since luck and RNG is the main reason I end up disliking FNAF games. 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is the prime example, but of course, fan games are guilty of this as well. I'm excited to dive into Mary's Arcade. I'm sure there will be no complaining from my end at all, and I'll be totally calm the entire time and will never go feral. Grab a snack and a drink, there's a lot I want to talk about. Mary's Arcade begins with us naming the Night Guard, something that I haven't seen other FNAF games do before. The only reason I'm mentioning it here is because the name shows up on the menu and on your paychecks. It's important for me to say that for these videos, I don't typically use my own footage. I usually borrow footage from full playthroughs and challenge runs from people like Toy Bonbon or Shooter. Rest assured, I do play the games I make videos about, I just use other people's footage for the review videos. Just had to get that out of the way. The gameplay loop of Mary's Arcade is honestly super refreshing and unique in comparison to other FNAF games. There are only 3 animatronics, but I promise you that's all this game needs in order to keep the game very difficult. And I promise you, when I tell you this game is hard, this game is really fucking hard. So here's how it works. In your camera system, you have 2 important buttons, your PA button and your buzzer button. I'll start with the buzzer button. When you press the buzzer, it will shock the camera you are currently looking at. If an animatronic is on that camera, they will be locked in place until the buzzer finishes, I don't know, buzzing? What do you want from me? Then afterwards, they will continue on their path. The PA button does something pretty cool. It's somewhat similar to the Balloon Boy call from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. If you use the PA call on a camera that an animatronic is about to go into, they will immediately go into that camera. You can't make animatronic go backwards through cameras, only forward. You might be asking yourself, in what way is that even useful? And the answer is honestly pretty cool. When an animatronic reaches your door, their eyes will light up, letting you know they're there. You will then have to open your camera quickly, select the camera on the opposite side of the office, and use the PA button to lure them through your office to the other side. Now that might lead you to have another question. If you just lure them to the other door, wouldn't they just attack you from that door? And the answer is no. I can't find a very good reason to justify why this makes sense, so we're not even gonna try. But out of the 2 animatronics that attack from your left and right doors, they have movement patterns similar to animatronics from other FNAF games. Mary, the pink wolf, or fox? I don't really know, I think she's a fox. Anyways, she'll move clockwise through the cameras, since the building is basically just a big circle. Rascal, the raccoon animatronic, will move counterclockwise around the building. They will never, under any circumstance, turn around and start moving in the opposite direction. They will only ever move forward through rooms. So when you pull one of them through your office, they will have to make a full rotation around the building before being able to attack you at your door again. Are you following along? Great, you get a medal or a cookie. I hope you're allergic to cookies, and you die! Rah! 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 Now I need to mention the only part of this game that I think is a negative. Cooldowns on your door lights. You'll notice that after using the buzzer or the PA button, that a bar will start filling up underneath the button. This is a cooldown for those buttons, and this prevents you from spamming them, which would obviously break the game and make it far too easy. Here's where the problem comes around. Mary and Rascal move at the speed of fucking sound. Sonic type shit. And on later nights when they're both active, the cooldowns become a huge problem. Because once you use the PA button on one of them, the other will reach your office well before your PA cools down. So, what's the remedy for this? Your door lights. In addition to using the buzzer to stall animatronics in place, using your door light when an animatronic is in the doorway will also stall their movement. I will note that the lights are meant to give you an extra 5 to 10 seconds for your PA to cool down, and not meant for you to halt an animatronic when your PA is basically empty. While an animatronic is at your door, they still have a timer for when they'll move into your room, whether you're flashing them or not. And if you're flashing them when that timer runs down, the lights to the building will flicker out and you'll lose the night. If you're easily frustrated, this game is probably not for you. On night 1, only Mary is active. With one animatronic, this game is a cakewalk. But this night is really just meant to give you an understanding of how the mechanics work, and it's also where we're told that the night will pass along faster if the cameras are not up. This gives us an incentive to not be looking at the cameras, but as you'll soon find out, looking at the cameras all the time is going to be the most valuable asset in this game. Night 2 is where Rascal becomes active, and the game actually starts to become a challenge. Still, this night is really easing you into dealing with 2 animatronics at one time, so beating it is fairly easy. On this night, there's a large emphasis placed on your buzzer, because it becomes incredibly important with 2 active animatronics. Night 3 is where this game really amps up in difficulty. You'll notice that Rascal moves much faster than Mary does, which can pose a small problem when it comes to balancing their locations, but be ready because it only goes from 10 to 100 after this night. But before this night ends, you get to see one of the coolest things I've ever witnessed in a FNAF game.
Power supply low. Powering down.
Was that not the fucking coolest shit you've ever seen in your life? A scripted cutscene that makes you think you lost? It's so cool. And I think the only reason why it left so many people, including myself, as shocked as it did, was because it completely breaks the Five Nights at Freddy's norms. I'm sure everyone who's played FNAF has had a moment where the clock strikes 6 a.m. in the middle of a jump scare animation. It's a rare occurrence, yet it somehow still happens to most of us. And this game takes that concept and creates its own cutscene out of it. It was this moment while playing this game that made me decide I needed to make a video about it. But now we move on to Night 4, aka Poop City. Night 4 introduces the final animatronic, Scarlet the deer, or a doe. Fawn? I don't know, it's a deer. Scarlet does something totally different from the other two animatronics. She is not affected by your PA system or your buzzer, meaning she'll truck right through the building however and whenever she pleases. How do you stop her? Remember when I said that not looking at the cameras makes the night go faster? Yeah? In order to stop Scarlet, you have to stare her ass down on the cameras. Life's great, dude. It's awesome, honestly. Scarlet begins on the stage like all the other animatronics do, and she'll follow either Mary or Rascal's path. She'll continue in that direction until she reaches your office, where she'll then attack from the door in the middle of the room, which means you can't use your door lights to stall her either. So instead, you must find her on the cameras and stare at her. Once you do this for long enough, which takes around 3 seconds, but trust me, feels like way longer, especially when some fucker is at your door. But once you look at her for long enough, she'll move backwards 1 camera, and then you can switch to that camera and continue to push her back until she is at the top of the map. Note, you can't make her go back on stage, so the camera right next to it is as safe as you're gonna get. Keeping Scarlet away doesn't get too stressful until you have Mary or Rascal sitting at your door, and you have to stop flashing them to pull your camera up to keep her away. But now, we get to touch on Night 5. And if Night 4 was Poop City, Night 5 is Poop Universe. Oh my god, Night 5. It's very important that I answer a specific question now. The Game Jolt page for Mary's Arcade states that this game does not use RNG and is pure skill. Is that statement true? The answer is yes, but I promise you, when Night 5 comes around, it will feel like complete RNG. But it's not, okay? It's not. I promise. This game is not so much a horror game as it is a puzzle game. Literally everything that takes place during the nights are scripted. That includes where animatronics start, when they move, and where they move. Speaking of where they start, on Night 5, Mary starts about 3 cameras away from your door, and Rascal starts about 2 cameras away from your door, while Scarlet is on stage. Immediately, right out of the gate, you're at an enormous disadvantage. If you do nothing, within the first 10 seconds, Rascal will already be at your door. So you might think to just send him through, but almost directly after, Mary will be at your door, and uh-oh, you just used your PA. Guess it's time to kill myself. So then you think, okay, here's the strat. The moment the night starts, I'm gonna buzz Rascal and let Mary hit my door. I'll send her through and then stall Rascal with the light, which should give me just enough time to send him through before the lights go out. But uh-oh, fucker, you forgot about Scarlet, and now she's in your asshole. Okay, same strategy, except this time, after sending Mary through, we find Scarlet and send her back to the starting position, but oh shit! Rascal's at the door, so opening my cameras to move Scarlet now becomes super risky, and I'm fucked in the butthole again. Night 5 of Mary's Arcade is the bane of my existence, the piss in my pants, and the shit in my britches. It took me over 2 hours of attempts to figure out the pattern of this night's puzzle. Again, everything is the exact same every night, literally no RNG in the timings, so I started to develop a strategy. I needed to figure out exactly how Scarlet worked, and I'm pretty damn sure that I have. So, the night begins and Scarlet is in her start location. On Night 5, she will start by going left, the same side that Rascal goes. I know that my timing needs to be tight and precise, so my plan is to buzz Rascal on start immediately. let Mary through, and stall Rascal at the door with the light until my PA system is ready to then let him through. Since I have to be in the bottom right corner camera to let Rascal through, I need to make sure that Scarlet will be there, so that the moment I open the camera to let Rascal through, I will retroactively immediately push Scarlet away from my door. But we just established that she's going left, so what do we do? Well, if you push Scarlet to the main starting room, she will begin to attack the opposite side. So in night 5, she begins by going counterclockwise. So if before Rascal reaches my door, but after I let Mary through, I push Scarlet back to the main room, she will then begin to move clockwise. This gives me time to stall Rascal while she moves. However, while stalling Rascal, I will have to make one risky move. If I leave her totally unanswered, she will kill me before my PA system refills, so I have to push her back at some point. Now, one might think if you push her back, she'll start going in the wrong direction, and we've already established that I want her to be in the bottom right corner camera by the time I send Rascal through. But something I found out about Scarlet: you can push her back as much as you want, but she won't switch directions unless you push her back to the main room. Meaning that if I sit on the bottom right corner camera in preparation for luring Rascal, I can temporarily stop flashing him with the light to pull up the camera and push Scarlet back into the kitchen camera and quickly go back to flashing Rascal. This will give my PA system just enough time to refill before Rascal's door timer runs out, allowing me to push Rascal through, and then push Scarlet back to the main room. You might be thinking now, wow, that took way more thinking than any game I've ever played in my entire life. But then you look at the time and realize that it's only 1 a.m. I have to figure out timings like that for the next 5 in-game hours. This right here is why this game took me so fucking long to beat. This scripted bullshit makes me want to get mauled by a bear. I would honestly rather have RNG because this just isn't fun. It doesn't feel like skill because each night is identical. At least with FNAF 2 10/20 mode, I know that I just got unlucky with Toy Bonnie and that next time I could just get lucky and win. But not with Mary's Arcade. Mary's Arcade is nothing but trial and error, spending 30 minutes figuring out a pattern, die, spend another 10 minutes solving the new problem, die, do it again and again and again until you realize that fucking 2 hours have passed and you've only solved up to 4 a.m. with a goddamn night. And then I get the displeasure of talking about 5 a.m. Oh, 5 a.m. You big, stinky, fat, smelly, sweaty, sticky, ugly, stupid, dumb, idiotic, brain-dead, moronic bitch. Right at the finale of 5 a.m., all of the cameras go completely out. You can't look at them. You're no longer able to see anything on the cameras, and it really comes down to you versus Scarlet. Scarlet, if unanswered, will make it to your office before you hit 6 a.m. every time without fail. But how exactly are you supposed to stop her if you can't see the cameras, you ask? I have no fucking idea. It was ironically sheer luck that I didn't die to her on my final run. My idea was that even though I couldn't see her, she was still there, meaning that if I knew where she was before the cameras went out, I could still land on the camera she was just on, wait for the camera to flicker letting me know I pushed her back, then continue to push her back to the main room and just camp that camera and wait to win, since Mary and Rascal showing up during the game's final desperation to keep me here was very, very uncommon. But there would be runs where I would do this and still miraculously die to Scarlet. I have no fucking idea where she was. I had no strategy, no puzzle to solve, no clues to go off of. Have you ever tried to put together a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle without looking at it? Play Mary's Arcade Night 5, 5 a.m. After a few attempts of giving it a try, you'd be unzipping your pants and pulling your wiener out at the thought of attempting the jigsaw puzzle. I'm dead ass serious. I do not know how I beat this night. I could not replicate what I did. I watched multiple other people beat this night, and I didn't pick up on any patterns. I literally have no conceivable idea what I was expected to do at this point. I really hope someone in the comments could tell me what the intended route was, because I'm honestly so fucking confused. But after beating Night 5, the game is done. And so is this video. Psych, you fucking idiot. There's a challenge night. Nightmare mode. Fuck. Fuck. I didn't beat it. No, I didn't even put in an attempt. The moment I saw Nightmare mode on my title screen, I uninstalled the fucking game. I could not even begin to handle the mental anguish that would fall upon me as a consequence of trying that. No thank you, I'm good. But lucky for us, there is a custom night that introduces some new characters. Kipper, Dipper, and Martin. Kipper and Dipper are canonically Mary and Rascal's kids. Their mechanic is really easy. When you see them in your doorway, flip up your camera and flip it back down. That's it. Since they look like Mary and Rascal, I think the goal was to get you to think they were Mary and Rascal and cause you to turn the lights on, killing you. But it really isn't that hard to tell the difference. Martin is also very easy. Martin will spawn on any camera at random. All you have to do is find him and stare him down until he temporarily goes away. Easy. There's also these little random puppets that show up in front of your face, and you'll have to boop their noses to make them go away. I don't really understand the point of them, but I guess I'll go with it. Props to Frogger and Shooter for actually beating this shit show of a custom night. I'm well aware others have beaten it, but Frogger was the first victor, and I just like watching Shooter's content. So congrats, guys. I don't know why you did this to yourself. I'm sure that the anguish and the pain of doing this will surely be retroactively laid off on your future wife and children. But that's Mary's Arcade. There's technically a death minigame that plays sometimes upon a loss, but the creator of the game said there's not really a storyline to this game like most other FNAF games have, so I don't think diving into it is super necessary.